Nope, not at all. Them claymores would not do that much damage. My name is David Harris.
My name is Andy Stumpf.
Hey, my name's DJ Shipley.
Jay Lee here.
Elliot Ackerman.
Nicholas Irving.
Patrick McNamara.
Today we're going to look at explosions,
Close quarter battle scenes.
Bomb disposal scenes.
Marine Corps scenes.
Sniper scenes.
Gun handling techniques.
Underwater action scenes from movies and seeing how real they really are. I spent just under 17 years as a U.S. Navy SEAL.
One last thing. When you hit the water, don't forget to cut away your chute. 90% of people killed during the halo jump got tangled up in their chutes and drowned.
I've never been in an underwater fight in my life with anybody or thing except for my own equipment. My belts have tried to kill me, magnets have tried to kill me, hoses, like you end up fighting all of your gear. So that portion of the brief was legit. I've never seen anybody give an audible brief on an airplane because it's so loud that you can't hear. I am not aware of any real-world operations that started with a parachute jump of any kind that went directly into a dive. You're probably going to do a jump where you're pushing boats out of the aircraft as well. The boat lands under its own parachute, you land next to it, you get into the boat, and you're probably going to have to travel a substantial distance to actually do the dive. Because otherwise, you're flying an airplane directly over the top of where you're trying to be sneaky, and that's not how you play varsity level hide and seek, right? Cutting away from your parachute before you get into the water is actually really dangerous because at lower altitudes, it's really hard to judge how high you are above the water. The rule that we use, wait until your body hits the water to cut away from your equipment. There have been people who cut away and they thought they were at 10 feet, but they were at 100 feet or 150 feet. And at some point, you know, the surface tension of water can be like concrete and you can kind of do the math. You don't have to use a flare. I mean, they make flashlights. They last longer. You don't have to worry about getting burned. People would actually probably be a little bit underwhelmed with the type of diving that you do in the SEAL teams. Not by the volume of diving, but it's very focused on getting from A to B. A lot of it is navigation to a place where you could implant a charge or a sensor, and then you're right back out. People who do this type of diving, or you know, the type of diving where they're out on coral reefs, it's just a total different experience. Most of the diving that I did was at night and at depths less than 20 feet. Not accurate at all. This is a 0. They actually did some really robust breath holding work for this movie. And it's easy to get a long breath hold. Like there are people who can hold their breath for like 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes. It's about the lowest level of exertion though. You don't see people holding their breath being incredibly active, which is exactly what he was doing. The first introduction to diving for SEAL candidates is open circuit in the pool. And I administered the test, and it would not be uncommon to watch students have a shallow water blackout or hold their breath until they pass out. And one of the main indicators that somebody is actually about to become unconscious is that bubbles will start escaping their mouth, just like he simulated in the movie. So they actually obviously put their time in to research this. For the cinematic aspect and the actual likelihood of this happening, we're gonna give them like a 3.
And your muscles will stop working in about 30 seconds.
Nah, I'm sure it's not that fast.
Would you please listen for once?
So this apparently is occurring in the Arctic. His operational equipment consisted of a pair of board shorts and what appeared to be a messenger bag slung over his shoulder, which is a controversial choice. You spend a good portion of your time as a student in BUD/S hypothermic. I mean, we're talking laying in the Pacific Ocean down in San Diego. Sometimes the water temperature's in the 60s. We can get you hypothermic by keeping you in there long enough, but that's a different type of cold than what was being shown in Archer. Like that's Arctic water cold. Looked like he was putting a mason glass explosive charge somewhere inside of the propeller. Okay, I mean, highly improbable. The propeller itself may not be the best place to actually put a charge. Actually, when we would do ship attack, combat swipper operations, Instead of actually the propeller itself, the underside of a vessel, there's oftentimes struts and then the drive shaft that goes out to the propeller. And we would actually put the charges on the struts itself to structurally damage the ship's ability work under its own power or navigate. If you blow up a propeller, and I'm not saying that this is like a NASCAR swap out fix, but you can put another propeller on. If you damage the structural integrity of the ship and then the propeller shaft is then broken and they have no ability to reattach that, again, it's a fixable problem, but now we're talking probably taking the boat out of the water, putting it into a dry dock and all of those things. So you can get more, bang for your buck, pun intended, I suppose. How explosives are able to work underwater? A lot of them are naturally very resistant to the elements. C4 is a good example. To get C4 to explode, we actually use blasting caps. So that functions underwater though, just like it would in the air. Tough to rate a cartoon, I think, for accuracy. This is gonna have to be on the lower end. I'm gonna go with a 2. And the only reason he gets a 2 is I like the homemade mason charge that he somehow wedged into the propeller. If you need to cross the river, cross the river. There's no reason to actually pop up in the middle of it and give away your tactical advantage if you are trying to sneak up on somebody. You would either cross the entire thing above the water or cross the entire thing below the water. Or go farther down or upstream and maybe find a log that's across it. So you don't have to get wet, because being wet sucks. All right, stop right there. I have been asked about this particular scene so many times because people absolutely love it and they want to know how we train to be able to do that. And here's the answer. We don't. Because, right, you'd never fall in any other direction. You just absolutely know the exact place and time that somebody's going to fall when you shoot them in the head, right? Because why wouldn't you? What could possibly go wrong? But you got to remember, all of that was preceded by probably a 7.62 or a 300 Win Mag round snapping through the jungle. The suppressor that's on the rifle, it's basically a muffler, and it contains some of the gas, and it drastically reduces the decibel output of the rifle. But bullets, when they fly through the air, they're supersonic, so it makes a crack. And there is subsonic ammunition, and it's much quieter. That's not what that person was shooting. The whole point of doing this charade of catching somebody and lowering them into the water as if it was just eating them into the abyss is because you're trying to be sneaky. So going through all this in an attempt to be sneaky and then cracking off around in the jungle, it defeats the entire purpose. It's not how it works, people. Where you link up with a submarine in the middle of the ocean, that's totally plausible. They were on a Zodiac, which is going to have probably a 55 or a 35 horsepower engine, so they could easily go from a landmass over the horizon out into international water, or really wherever the sub would want to meet and do that, so that's totally legit. Yeah, wow. So they obviously had direct support from the United States Navy to make this movie. And I'm actually surprised they showed very much of the SDV, which stands for SEAL Delivery Vehicle. In essence, it is a miniature submarine. It's smaller, harder to be discovered, and you can move people and equipment a really far distance and then go back to the submarine too, because you can go back and relink back up to that asset that you departed from. You are in your dive gear until that dive is over, and it can be up to 14 hours. A lot of the times you're in dry suits. Dry and warm are two very different things that people should not confuse. They nailed it. It's very plausible that all of that would occur on an SDV operation. I'm going to give them a 10 on that. The Sniper Water River catch is a 0. It actually might be a negative number. Is there a more obvious way to let somebody know that you're coming than white and orange parachutes in the daytime, jumping directly over the top of them? Surprise! You didn't see that coming. I've worn dive fins on my feet for a free fall jump and actually was falling through the air with them on. More often than not, though, the back strap of the fin, you put your feet through that and you actually tape the fin up to your leg. But if you're going to land in the water, you're going to want to have fins on you. In case you need to have the ability to swim or exert yourself, you're going to need those fins. Yes! And they had a fleet, a full fleet of submersibles with spear guns. I am not aware of any engagement at any time in the history of human beings where anything like this has occurred. We are not trying to get into fights in the water. Like, bottom line, we use it as a way to disguise what we're doing, or to get from A to B, or to be sneaky, right? To, like, well, I don't know where they went. Like, bloop, here we are. We're in the water. You didn't see us. Surprise. We're not looking to get into a fight, ever. So, no, we're not bringing tridents or spears or any of that stuff. I like how they're cutting the hoses. Unfortunately, there's usually an inhalation hose and an exhalation hose, and they probably could still breathe if they caught the wrong one. We always had dive knives on us, but it's for like cutting gear if something gets hung up. There was never a thought in my mind ever of pulling that out with the intent of fighting with it. It was for anything but that. Like Phillips head screws, using the tip of your knife. Like, that's what we use dive knives for. I like the idea of what he's got in his mouth. I'll call that the Gen 1 spare air, which with a canister of that size, I feel like you have about 1/2 of one breath. So he certainly wouldn't be able to stay underwater. And then the concussive device in the water. Concussion in the way that shockwaves travel underwater is a very, very real thing. Let's just say that it was a grenade of some kind. That would probably kill the people inside of that contained area, but it probably would damage him a little bit too, especially if there's open windows and portholes, because that stuff will bounce out as well. So it's plausible, but I would say you would want to get the out of there before that thing went off, like out of the water before that thing went off. I don't even know if I can give this one a technical review. So I didn't get a good look at the gun that he shot that out of. My guess would be probably some version of a M203 grenade launcher. The projectile doesn't have this continuous propellant like it did, and it just pushes along. And the reason, people, I'm sure, want to know if you can fire guns underwater. You can fire a gun generally one time. They're not designed to function in an environment that has that much feedback from the water. You could probably shoot a 203 underwater, but it's not going to look like that. It would probably come out of the barrel, if it even cleared the barrel, and then just drop right off. And they also arm by spinning. That's why it has a minimum arming distance, usually of 33 yards. So there's a lot of things that were completely impossible in that particular scene right there. If you just look at how inefficient the swimming motion was, what kills a lot of your energy, there's two things. One, they had a weapon slung around them that was very loose. And their shoes. It is so hard to swim with shoes. I think that video highlighted the difference between fins and no fins. That's what swimming looks like when you don't have fins on and you have shoes. That's why you want to have fins on top of that. If we were jumping and there wasn't going to be that much swimming, I'd go with one that had maximum flexibility so I could tape it up and wear the thing as I was leaving the aircraft. If I had to wear what they had on, I'd be pulling myself along the floor. I think it would be easier, and it's very positive, and you'd get more mileage for your effort. That's why you need a knife in that situation. But they weren't diving, so they didn't have their dive knives with them. However, they had a bunch of guns. They didn't spend $5 on a pocket knife. What's going on here? I'm going to give them a 3 at best. It's a straight, they're like reaching for a 3, but I'll give them a 3.
I found door number 3, and I'm taking it. Thanks.
Oh, that's a national treasure, all right. Jumping off of, I think it was the aircraft carrier, that's probably going to be 50, 60 feet. I'm here for that. That's definitely survivable. You could definitely do that. we navigated with, we called them nav boards, and we had 3 really exciting items on there that we used to get to stare at for hours at a time. The first one you already mentioned was a compass. The next entertaining tool was a depth gauge, and lastly, a stopwatch. That was it. We dive in pairs, but only one person gets the navigation board. So somebody else out there is just like, I hate my life. This dive is taking forever. I don't even have anything to look at. So sometimes when I was the buddy, I would just swim on top of my dive buddy and just look at the navigation board too, because I was so bored. I just wanted to look at numbers slowly, just like creeping around.
Can you see gates in the water?
Sir, it's the Hudson. Nothing is visible.
So all these people that are above them looking down are going to see the bubbles. This would be an example of where closed circuit would be better than open circuit. Because even though that guy grabbed him right underwater, every time they exhale, the bubbles are coming up. It's actually really easy to track divers' progress from above when they're breathing open circuit. Open circuit, you can see the bubbles. Closed circuit, you can be sneaky. It's just a closed loop system that only allows the gas to flow through in one direction, because obviously you wouldn't want it coming back and forth. And you push it through a chemical scrubber, it pulls out the carbon dioxide, and boom, you're off and running. There's a 100% chance that you could actually do that, but if you wanted to do it and actually not be seen, I'd say closed circuit is a better option. I'll give them a 7.
Conserve your gas supply. Speak only when necessary.
It's going to have to be a radio. There's no way it's going to be a Bluetooth connection. I have no experience with doing that. There's not really anybody that you would be talking to, nor do I know what you would necessarily talk about. The diving that we did was hand signal based, or you'd have a grease pencil and a piece of plastic and you could write on it. Other than that, it was squeezes or just woo, 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 woo. And it's amazing actually how much you can learn what the other person is saying. You're almost actually holding a conversation. So very low speed. Even if something went wrong, the number one thing you do is you stop the dive and you go to the surface, because you can take the stuff out of your mouth and be like, hey man, what's going on? And you can restart the dive. Yeah, that's real. Sharks like to go and stuff too. When things would bump into me, the theory that I went with was, if I don't look, it didn't happen. So we would be swimming around a lot of times at night, and I would get slammed. And my whole thought process was, nope, I'm not going to look at that. I'm going to pretend that it didn't happen. It probably was like a sea lion. You know, it could have been a dolphin. It might have been a shark. I don't know. I didn't look. I would say that everything that they did is possible. They may not have had all the right equipment to do it, but I'll give them a 7. So it requires different equipment. Oftentimes, even to get into these cave systems, it's a very high risk, high consequence activity. Hard pass.
Stay calm. We got a buddy break.
They decided that they were going to buddy breathe, which is just basically sharing one apparatus between 2 people. If you're going to do that, you're going to have to do more than just sit there and buddy breathe until your oxygen or air is gone. Because you notice they were staying in exactly the same spot. So you could just sit there and do that and then run out of air and die together. Or maybe buddy breathe and start making your way towards how you can get the hell out of there. Buddy breathing can kind of go exactly like it went in this movie. People's ability to hold their breath varies greatly. And when the regulator is in your mouth or the mask is on your face and you're breathing, you feel a lot better than the person who is holding their breath, watching you breathe, wishing that they were breathing, wanting the mask that you're wearing. So it can become a little bit of a battle, but you have to work together. You follow the procedure regardless if you're scared, cold, wet, hungry, tired, fill in the blank, or everything in between. People can get very emotionally involved in those situations where what they really need to do is procedurally work through it as opposed to allowing their emotions to take over, and you have to work as a team. Yeah, it would be one of the worst case scenarios to have something happen like that. Not the way that I would want to go out, for sure. I'm going to give that a 7.
Yeah, my name's DJ Shipley. I'm a retired Navy SEAL. Served roughly 17 years from 2002 until 2019. I'm a knowledge transfer specialist with GBRS Group. It's a tactical training company. We specialize on CQB. Today we look at close quarter battle scenes. To run into what I would consider the center of a room with 12 adversaries is the worst scenario. Basically, as soon as he made entry, you run down the longest wall, take a right-hand turn, and then keep a wall to one of his shoulders the entire time. I mean, you can do a tack reload. So I haven't ran the magazine completely dry, and I'm moving from one transition point to other. Whole gun slide lock reload, drop it, new mag in, send it back home, and now I have it. I can do the whole thing with essentially one hand. But for him, he sticks the guy with the blade, does a little John Wick flick, knocks out the mag, locks in a new one, and just pretends like this 220-pound literal ninja behind him isn't going to do anything to disrupt it. And I know the concept of the movie, it's a bulletproof suit. The issue is if you put on a bulletproof suit and I shoot you with 9mm, it's gonna knock you on your When he cloaks, he'll grab his jacket, cover his face, and then he does like this subtle present and shoots, but he's not looking down his sights. He's not even really picking up a target. He's really looking this way, and he's just trying to get rounds down range. You're not going to hit anything, and you're shooting precious ammo you clearly don't have in reserve. For CQB and the professional, especially SWAT team guys, you have to be accountable for every single round that leaves us. There are no just winging it. We're fighting armies of assassins inside of an apartment building. I guess John's style will work, but for the reality of CQB, I wouldn't do that. He's basically gonna drop down and pretend like he's invisible and try to get in this weird 2.5-foot shootout with these guys. Multiple people shooting at him from multiple angles. Like right now, he doesn't even have a gun ready. Now he does. Now he does like this quick peekaboo. It pretends like those guys can't just run up on top of him and shoot him. Just weird transition points. He's not ducking down. So carbine goes down, he goes to pistol. That goes away, now he brings up a shotgun. It's like, the whole time you're just standing up exposed to everything around you. It's just a very vulnerable spot to be in. But if he backs up right to where you can see the light, right around the corner, he can engage a lot of people from right there. You're one arm's length away from each other, shooting actual bullets at each other, just not where you want to be. You'd have better luck doing a distraction and then wrapping rapidly around one side and trying to ambush him straight on. Meaning, like if this pillar's between me and you and I'm shooting over my left-hand shoulder and I see you bounce back and forth 2 or 3 times, I'm gonna send it and immediately spin around this way and try to ambush you. Entertaining, I'd give it a 10. For realism, I'd give it a 1.
Let's not do that.
You can see when Don Johnson initially goes to pull that pistol, right before he does, he starts to create space, starts to back up. That's exactly what he should do. That guy's closing his distance, and if Don Johnson was a little more heads up, he would realize that and increase his pace and draw that pistol faster. Because right now, what he has is reactionary gap. It's when 2 adversaries are so close that if I make a move and I decide I'm gonna go, there's nothing you're gonna do to beat it. I would say that the way he grabbed that pistol is not going to be successful. His finger's already on the trigger. Now you grabbing it by the barrel, that first round's still gonna go off if he pulls it. So the gun comes up, I stop the gun, I smash you, strip it off your wrist, now I have control of your wrist. My issue with the clip is I don't know why he's clearing safe in it inside a reactionary gap. Pretend like Don Johnson's not a trained police officer, he's gonna try to retake it back. It'd be a lot easier if I knock you off center line, kick you on your and push you. Now I can clear and safe it, now it's my gun. He goes on guy number 2, gets him, he's gonna roll him over, which is a great job. So right now he's trying to maintain control of that wrist that has the pistol. He's got a wrist on, so now he's trying to maintain it in a safe direction. He's gonna pry on his left arm, gonna get him in a modified Kimura, gonna start to apply pressure. Yeah, it's like a wrist lock where you apply pressure. It's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu move, but it's very common in the military, combative world, inside of SWAT teams. It's one of their typical disarms where you're trying to pry something out of somebody's hand. His weapons manipulation, clearing the chamber, looks great. Not a very easy thing to do, but not something super common for guys growing up in the military who probably haven't handled a revolver ever. So he's obviously highly trained that he can run through multiple weapon systems with relative ease in a high-stress environment. I do like that he's bouncing back and forth between the adversaries. Puts Don Johnson on his goes over, grabs the next guy, puts him down, immediately goes back to subject number one, and now hard points there. Again, if he wanted to end it quickly, he definitely could have, so he's showing courageous restraint, appreciate the effort.
You wouldn't show up to your own show.
I'm not a huge fan of just kicking guns across the room, but yeah, I mean, you definitely don't want to leave the gun laying down next to him. I'd probably give that a 5 out of 10, just because he is trained, the movement is there. I would just say that is the worst possible scenario. You got to fight two guys, both with guns in broad daylight, in the middle of an open terrain with no cover and concealment.
Get there!
CQB is supposed to be formed in a team. Solo CQB is about the worst thing you could ever get into because there's too many angles you're covering. Every step forward, you're opening yourself to a new angle that you don't have a teammate to cover. I wouldn't keep my hands around my side. I'd at least keep them up, and I'm scanning left and right as I'm moving down that hallway. There's no reason for me to look straight when I have opening doors. I just have my hands up, a little more thoughtful, a little more controlled, and now when he comes, I can immediately respond to him. Environmentals are everything that's around you. It could be the sharp corner of a table, it could be broken glass. He grabs a nice pane of glass, palm assist, right into the face. That's a good environmental. It's using everything around you as a weapon because I don't have a traditional fixed weapon in my hand. I have to create one right now. Yeah, if you find yourself in a scenario where someone has a knife and you don't have any kind of tool, turn around and run as fast as humanly possible. He does a great job of controlling the blade, dragging across the glass, trying to break his grip. There's little microseconds where he traps the blade, he stops, he waits for a beat, and then he goes again. Just continue to go. Drive in, headbutt him, use all the environmentals, smashing his face off glass. Anything you can do, once you put hands on him, you got to go the entire way.
Take right!
One guy in the point, now I have guys, dual columns down the left and right-hand side. Now I can really control the space. I don't think they did a bad job moving. It's quiet, heel, toe, they look very slow, they look very uncontrolled. We call it 360-720. So it's everything you can see up, down, and all the way around you. So as you're looking in the hallway, you have to be scanning for everything, especially now with all the tech stuff. You're looking at CCTV cameras, booby traps. We ran into a bunch of weird stuff over in Iraq and Afghanistan, and they put explosive devices in the weirdest places. So you have to be able to look everywhere and process all the information. I've never seen a role player pop out of tile, but I've definitely seen them hidden on second stories, overlooking you, and if you don't scan up, they will shoot you. That right there is the biggest issue in CQB. It's not clearing the corner. Right now, no one can clear that space where Jason's standing except for the guy on that side. It's never really good to wrap a corner and go face to face, beard to beard with somebody, especially an adversary. So if I can just shorten up and I let my friend who has a superior angle take it. So in this case, it'd be the guy on the far left side. He could lean over, clear that corner, and give it to me, and then I could take it. This guy just blows it off completely and just walks past a blind intersection, and that's why he grabs him. So I'd rather get in a 15-foot gunfight than a 2.5-foot gunfight. I will say that Jason's fight sequencing, his choreography is second to none. There's some subtle tweaks to make it more hyper-realistic. If you did all that in real life, would you survive it? No. So I'd give that a 2 out of 10. Now they've got cattle prods, they've got all kinds of distance weapons. It's kind of a nightmare. We'll just say for the sake of this, that is longer than this. I can create more distance with an extended blade than I can like a reverse grip. So you come at me, I can strike you, I can keep you away at distance. I don't have to have you make physical contact with me before I'm able to strike you. And those cattle prods, man, they're a real deal. I've been hit with those things, and they're hard to get away from. I would say getting him fully surrounded, which is what they did, is their best course of action. If they would have initiated the entire thing with someone around his neck, they probably would have had better success. The issue is you're in an elevator and they can see because it's reflective. So it's very hard to sneak up on a guy. It's no different than if I'm sitting at a diner and I'm watching reflections. Like I can watch somebody come up behind me. I know when the waitress is coming because I can see the reflection off a fork. You're just using the environmentals to increase your situational awareness. He's watching people. He can see subtle hands creeping up towards pistols. He can see people looking at their cross-partner like, get ready. He's watching all those little tells, and he's already prepped for it. He's like, yeah, this dude's about to turn around right now, and he already engages with him. You have to be stronger than the adversaries, or you just have to know how to use the natural breakdown points of people. Like, they grab me by the wrist. I know if I remove the thumb, they lose all grip purchase. I do like the intensity he has right out of the gate. Like, he knows if they get me and they trap all 4 limbs, I'm stuck here. They already see they're trying to pin his wrist back. Now he's trying to fight it all the way through. I do like that he's using the environmentals. He's using his mass, running himself up and down the wall to create space. I think he's doing a fine job considering he's fighting an unwinnable battle unless you're Captain America. We call that a gaggle. That is uncontrolled body mass moving down the same structure. So you just threw a bunch of bodies at it, no real rhyme or reason. They could have just split the hallway and stacked up guys down either side of the hallway, left the center open, give the guys a little bit of room to maneuver. That way it's not just a whole hunk of bodies taking up the entire hallway. It gives people the option to dive into rooms, get out of the place when you're all just surrounded. I would give this a ranking of 3 out of 10 as far as realism. I do like the aggressive nature of his counter assault. Is it going to work in reality? No.
17 went to one of Tara's properties, the whole place blew up. That's why we're doing this right.
Because it's an alley, it's literally 360, 720, because you have all the vertical threats as well. In a typical hallway, there's no real threat inside the roof unless it's completely open. Now, if I'm in an apartment building in the alley, story after story after story, everything is potential adversary or threat. So you have to process all of that in real time. But I would say that first initial sequence is very similar to what you'd see special operations a SWAT team do. I mean, you can just see one person's holding a fixed point, the other person's kind of wrapping around the stairs for the uncleared space. Just the pace they're moving, the angles and distance you're using look very realistic. They did a good job. That's the stack, the assault team about to make entry. I wouldn't stack 3 guys in front of a closed door and try to deal with it. Really easy for the adversary just to shoot through the door. They're going to hear you on the backside of it. We're in that tiny little hallway in front of that closed door, trying to get the Holy and the sledgehammer and all that. There's just a bunch of guys standing in front of that closed door that's providing no security at all. You can't do anything until the door opens. Just get out of the way in case the rounds come through. Inward opening door, something that flings inside of the room. All I'm really trying to defeat is the actual locking mechanism as it sits inside the throw. It's only a 1/4 inch. When those guys came in, they could see that hall, they could see that immediate wall was clear. That's what they did. They wrapped around the outside to take the long way to clear back. That's a typical move. In my experience, not the best time to just stand in front of the cabinet. If we can get 2 people, I'd back a guy off and I'd fling open the cabinet door so we have a little bit of angles and distance. I'd much rather take that from 15 feet than I would 2.5 feet. So if you can create any space is better than no space. Looks like he's walking a Sunday stroll to Panera Bread. That's why you get zipped. Don't have 2 hands on a gun. You're not presenting it. You're not looking for uncleared threats.
Who the hell throws a grenade in the hospital?
All those guys that are packed up inside of that hallway, they're inside a hospital that's now being overrun. You have to be able to lock down the stairwells any way into the building as fast as humanly possible. Like, I'd have a dude on the stairs, at least on the floor I'm at. We can't let him sneak up behind us. I don't know why he's doing a transition. If your gun goes down, get out of the way. Get it back up and then come in there. And if you look directly below him, there's an assaulter below him that's already engaging the same people. Because right now, by the time this goes click, until this pistol comes out online and fires, I'm nothing. I might as well just be a big bullet trap. I'd much rather boom, boom, and I roll out of the way as fast as humanly possible. If my gun is down, then I come back with a pistol at the ready to take up the same space. I'd give this an 8. I mean, part of one of the reasons the show does so well is the authenticity. They've got a bunch of really good creative directors and guys that are helping out the actors. Some teams prefer to have it a dual entry, so if the door opens, one guy goes left, one guy goes right, and then there's an order of events that follow after that, how many guys they want to put into the room, but the crisscross, it's very common to see in CQB. Some guys do it all from the same side, and one guy will button hook, but that's so you have an equal chance of cutting the room in 50-50 as fast as humanly possible. You should be kicking just underneath it, not kicking a doorknob, because if you kick it hard, you'll break your foot. We call it a Leonidas kick from that movie 300. We used to turn 180 degrees and donkey kick it from the back. I'm basically turned around backwards kicking it. Now I can't see. We've had a lot of guys, their foot gets stuck in a door. You can imagine how funny you look as a full assaulter with your foot shoved through a residential door, and now I can't get it out. So if I have both hands on my gun and I stomp straight ahead, I can see where my foot goes, I'm more accurate, and then if it actually opens, now I'm in a place where I can make a dynamic entry. That's not a smoke grenade, it's a flash grenade because of the Hollywood theatrics and the pyrotechnics. It kind of gives off the feeling it's a smoke grenade, but you don't want a smoke grenade, and that's a lot of the reason why explosive breaching becomes a hindrance, because it kicks up so much dust that you can't see anything. RPG! Take cover! But not a lot of guys running around inside of their own home with an RPG trying to shoot you from 25 feet. That's not, I haven't seen that personally. There's such a backblast that comes out of them, you're not supposed to shoot them in confined spaces. A lot of times it'll collapse the structure on top of them. I thought he did a beautiful transition. I mean, he's clearly trained that a lot. That's not an easy maneuver to pull off. He took a bad corner, so he's basically presented here, didn't clear his corner, and that's where the adversary jumps out, grabs his gun. Now it's pinned. You're not wrestling that thing away from a 200-pound man, you're not. And that's why most guys carry a fixed blade. So a lot of guys will run a dagger center line on their chest. They can pull with both hands, either left-handed or right-handed. They'll have it just offset center. So that way, if this guy has control of my gun, I let it go and I pull this out, I'm immediately over the top. These things with knives behind their back, it's cool for utility blade, but in actual reality, it's gonna be very hard to get to. And that's a very precarious situation. If you get your hand stuck back here and they pin it, it's very hard to get it back. So that's why if everything is on my center line, I'm stronger from here and I'm faster on weapons deployment. And his re-transition back to pistol, immediately drops it, redeploys pistol, comes back out, double shot to the head. That's about as good as you go. I'd give that an 8 out of 10 as far as realism. All those guys are flowing in behind, but you're not just all bum rushing the entire thing because it's slow and methodical. So the first 4 guys, whatever, make entry, start doing it, and everybody else is kind of in reserve, and they're slowly but surely creeping up, so there's not a big delay or a gap. But you're just not going to storm the castle with 12 guys. A lot of times it's easier to solve it with less people than it is more. If you throw 45 people at that problem, it's a nightmare. I'd rather take 4 than 40. You got half the guys at high ready, some of the guys at low ready. It's really all unit discretion. So the high ready, you know, if I have a carbine, I keep it at the high port. For me, I like it better in tight confined spaces because I can ready the gun faster. If I have it at a low port configuration, I have to bring it up and around to get into configuration. A lot of units, they only run in high port. So if you watch them do CQB, this is a ready position. They drive it out, they engage. A lot of the other units, they keep it at a low port. Both have pros and cons. It all just depends on the style and how rapidly you can deploy them. Nods and a laser are definitely the most crucial elements for nighttime CQB. You have to have night vision to see at night. You have to have a laser to have an aiming device and to provide the illumination that you don't have inside of your reality. So a lot of things you can get away with in nighttime CQB, being slow or being super, super quiet. Sometimes in broad daylight, it's the reverse. Like you're not invisible. Everything you do. Everything is about how much noise you can mitigate. Everything from the shoes you wear to your pants, the Velcro that's on them. I mean, we'll take lighters and heat up the Velcro so it's not as sticky. So as you're by the doorway and you go to peel it, it's not loud. It's very quiet. We'll tape up different things. There's no metal on your body. Nothing's going to go rat-a-tat-tat in the middle of the night. Nothing's going to drag. They're not talking. We're not doing breaching charges. It's as quiet as possible and trying to get them off balance. So yeah, I mean, I thought they did a very good job. I'd give it a 9. I mean, stylistically, that's a very small structure, so you don't really get to see a lot of the big CQB movements, but the building blocks, that looks very realistic. Great on him for shutting off all the lights. That's exactly what I would do. Now we're on equal playing field. I own the terrain. I own my own space. You don't know my house like I do. Shotgun the front door. Now it's loud, and now they can see where you're coming from because you're telegraphing with your white light. Now, if he just hides in the shadows, he can pick them off one by one. If I flash it, I clear the hallway, I'm moving down, flash it again, moving down. It's sporadically on and off, only when I need it. So if I'm walking around, it's a mixed light environment and I see something move, I'm not just shooting, I'm turning the white light on as I go to present, making sure it's worthy of a shot, and then I shoot. I'm not just flashing everything with a white light because now you can see it. Professionals don't run around on full auto, especially not M4 carbines. Outside of that, I mean, good control of the gun, trying to utilize it for him. Personally, you'd just be a whole lot better if you just would have killed that dude right off the bat and then taken his gun completely, and then you can use it like an adult instead of just hoping you can strong arm this guy and turn him. That unathletic approach, that natural human blowing through the banisters, he's not a super athlete, that's realistic. 5 out of 10, because I like the realism of, you can tell he's not John Wick, there's no fancy moves, there's no judo throws. Good use of knees and elbows. He's already handcuffed right now, but he's in such a short range, he can generate so much power. Now he's got a knife. Bourne should be backing up right now, which he is, but he's not fully disengaging. I would have turned around and ran and got things in between me and him. And now he's looking for some sort of improvised weapon. You can see him. Anything for distance. Now it's just a rolled up newspaper, just enough to get him back. Smack him in the face, loses confidence over and over. He'll get frustrated, and then you trap him. It's no different than boxing. I mean, you can see it when they're smashing each other against the walls. He gets him in a modified Muay Thai clinch and kind of pulls him in, and they're trying to sweep their legs out. We train Siat Kali in the military. It's a really, really effective form of fighting. Comes from the Philippines. They do a lot of blade work, a lot of extended weapons, a lot of environmentals, and then a lot of wrist arm traps. A lot of it's really, really applicable for that close-in fighting where you have to deploy multiple tools. I have to go from no weapon to a concealed weapon really, really fast. Man, I love Jason Bourne. I'd give this an 8. You grab 2 Green Berets, exact same scenario, and put them inside of that apartment and tell them to fight to the death. It looks something like that. I like the machete aspect because, like we talked about before, it's a distance weapon. Your worst case scenario would be I pull out a Swiss Army knife and I'm trying to fight a dude with a machete. He has to come in so close for me to be able to use that weapon at its full advantage. Vice now it's machete on machete. I can slip and now I can start to work myself on the way in. Double-edged daggers are kind of reign supreme. Something with a firm grip, something you thumb cap on the back, and really some sort of guard. Pick up that blade behind you. He just waited at the threshold for 2 more guys with machetes to come running in. Pick that machete up and give yourself an advantage. Snap the leg off a table. Take the whole table and kick it in front of the threshold and slow them down and start looking for environmentals. You could do anything at that point, except stand there and just wait for him to close the distance. I mean, he's striking, it's good, but the reality is that everybody he's fighting is somehow a kung fu expert and they're kicking, punching. At the end of the day, they're just gonna hack him up into pieces with that. And if you don't have a blade to defend yourself, like right now, he has nothing. Kneeing, elbowing, punching to the back of the guy's hamstring to bring him to his knees are just not a reality. I would give this a 4. There's not a scenario in life where that singleton, without any external tools, is going to walk through that apartment building and survive it. Unless it's reinforced brick. If it's just a typical house, they zip right through it. I mean, you just gotta be very mindful, and a lot of it is because the guys do it professionally. They know the building they're gonna hit really, really well. So they adjust a small little tactics and TTPs to not allow themselves to stand in front of non-ballistic structures for too long. This is mixed light. right? It's a daytime hit. You can see it from the windows, the light pouring inside, but there's a lot of shadows in this room, a lot of places for people to hide. Typically, all the assault teams, we'd have on full body armor, we'd have helmet with night vision on, regardless of what the structure's on the inside, because you don't know the internal lighting conditions. A center-fed room to us is anything that's equidistant on either side. The door is directly in the center. Now, if I look at that exact same room, in my corners in the bottom right-hand corner, that's a corner-fed room. Meaning, when I open up, I've got a wall immediately that I'm looking at and all this uncleared space on this side. For him, when he opens it up, he's got his long wall, so I'll call that a corner-fed room, and there's an adversary right there. You're driving right to him and push him right in the corner just like he did, and your number 2 guy takes up the uncleared space. If you had nothing but corner-fed rooms, that's the easiest way to go because you can handle most of it from outside the door. Meaning I open up that door, I see this wall before I'm ever exposed. There's nothing there, nothing there, nothing there. I can pan the entire thing before I make entry. Corner-feds are a lot safer to do as a singleton. Center-fed rooms are issues because right when I step in, I'm exposed to the corners and I can't address them simultaneous. So if we put bad guys on either corner, how am I going to deal with that?
Clear! All clear! Target secure!
A lot of the times when you're just doing a typical assault, we'll call it kill-capture or capture-kill mission, the team becomes a priority. We're not putting the team at risk. Everything I do is about the team, bringing the team home. The objective, it doesn't matter, we're there to kill them. For a hostage, it's very different. You have to sacrifice a lot of the things that would keep the team safe in order to save the hostage. So everything is done at maximum speed, and you assume a lot of risk. You don't shoot through walls in hostage rescue because you don't know where they're at. You have to be extremely accountable of everything you do. You throw a grenade, it bounces through and it lands in a room with a hostage. You're never living that down. I'd give this 8 out of 10. Even the noise signature, it's a little bit louder than I would typically like, but because it's a hostage rescue, communication is the most important thing. My favorite fight scene we watched today was Sicario 2, because of the realism, the authenticity, and because it looks like something that I've experienced firsthand quite a few times. The raid is probably the most entertaining fight sequence because he does it like the Game of Death and Bruce Lee, just floor to floor, just leveling these people. And it really shows high-level athleticism and fast problem solving, using environmentals to solve problems rapidly over and over and over.
Jay Lee here, 13-year Navy Explosive Ordnance Disposal, or EOD vet. Did 4 combat deployments, 3 to Afghanistan, and 1 to East Africa. Today we'll be looking at bomb disposal scenes. That thing is apparently the Cadillac of trolleys. Can I say 100% that this wouldn't be entertained? No, because it might. But what I do know is there are probably a dozen other ways to attack this device from inside the bus. I mean, something rudimentary is getting a stick with some film so we can take an x-ray of the device so we can actually see what's going on.
Jack, I need you to look at the wire.
Harry, it's covered.
He is talking on a radio and or a phone right next to this thing. It's electronically initiated. They don't know if that energy will cause that device to fire or not. So that whole thing is not realistic whatsoever.
I can't bypass it, it'll fire!
It's a collapsible circuit.
Yeah, collapsing circuits are real. It's, you know, there's 2 or more detonators, and when you cut one, the other one will fire. It's common for us to train to that. It's very unlikely to encounter that well, at least in Afghanistan, in my experience, we didn't encounter a lot of collapsing circuits as mainly pressure plates, stuff like that, very simple circuits.
Howard Payne, Atlanta PD Bomb Squad.
Jack, I want you to get out of there and sit tight. We're gonna go after the source.
No, they should 100% do something to this device and not just solely rely on the bomber helping them out. There are tools we have to disrupt an IED and a component. So it'll disrupt the firing train, it'll disrupt all the circuitry, and separate components remotely, and then we'll go down, check the disruption, and then separate components further and do our thing. Jack, I believe he is a bomb disposal officer with the LAPD. He should know these component recognition things and be able to identify how this device works, or at least have a good idea of it. This definitely gets a 0 because he knows better and he should have taken an action. He should have brought a tool down there with him. He could have taped it right next to it and disrupted that thing right off the bus.
We got under 3 minutes left. What do I do first? Pressure sensors. I activated when I sat down. If I get up, my car explodes.
This is already hokey because he sat down and now it's armed. And there's a timer. In movies and TV, they often incorporate these big timers where it's counting down to the detonation, but in all reality, it's mainly a safe and arm type mechanism. If I'm a bomb emplacer, I need to be able to emplace it and then safely get away. So there's a time, but you're not gonna see this giant clock. It's like, you have 5 minutes before you die.
Orange, yellow, green.
Colors don't matter. What I need you to do is tell me which one is hot to the touch.
The warm wire versus cold wires, and you can make a circuit with the proper resistance so none of the wires are warm. So like the movie tropes of the warm wire or the colors of the wires is a total farce. I can go to Home Depot, Lowe's, whichever hardware store, your hardware store of choice, get any color wire I want, right? And put it in here.
Take the small box out of the kit and turn it on.
That kit probably looked like something I would pull tools from in a soft Special Operations Forces environment. From my experience in Afghanistan, it was all Special Operations Forces or Naval Special Warfare. We flew in helicopters somewhere, landed and ran to a target, right? Or walked a great distance to get to a target. You really want to limit what you have on your body. So yeah, we're not going to be carrying around briefcases and backpacks just full of tools.
Just cut it in the middle, the orange wire between the two clamps.
I don't want to get into that specifically in detail because that is how we attack certain things. But yeah, those clamps are they're for a very specific purpose for multiple detonators, and you would need another item that he doesn't have there to do diagnostic work on that type of device. You would need a little bit more time. I mean, a lot more training than just him saying, oh yeah, clamp it on the warm wire and then cut in between it, right? There's a lot of testing you have to do before you can cut a wire. But yeah, the whole setting, him sitting down in it, arming it, and then like having this opportunity to render it safe, yeah, you wish. So yeah, we'll give him a 2. We'll give him a 2. How it was set up and how it was in place, totally legit. He had a Claymore. He put it on top of the Grand Slam bomb, huge British bomb. Claymores are used all over. They're already wired. They're pre-made to be set up as booby traps. That's what they're for. So he just had the tripwire, put something that he thought one of these people chasing him, idiots, would grab. There are 100% bomb detection dogs, and in this clip, those dogs, I believe, are going for human detection. They're going for sniffing out Rambo, not necessarily sniff out explosive hazards in the woods. And even if they were, those dogs are running full speed. That's like essentially you trying to sniff a hot dog in the corner while sprinting down the hallway, like hyperventilating essentially. It's never gonna happen. Would the blast wave be that extended? I mean, it was drawn out to have that effect. The explosive component in there is Torpex. They added aluminum into the composition of that explosive to extend the blast. But with that being said, that's like a nuclear blast wave that is just like kind of continuing to go out. It would be really big and done. That blast wave would have killed a lesser man, not John Rambo. The explosive component in there is Torpex. It's about 50% stronger than TNT, and that's only the blast. Frag goes exponentially further than blast does. So yeah, he is definitely within that. This is probably the most realistic clip as far as how things function and how people think. Man, I might give Rambo an 8. He's knocked 2 because of survival. That's hokey at best, even for John Rambo.
I got it. It's a cylinder cipher. D-U-N-N. It's my last name. It knows who I am.
If someone is just going to make an improvised nuclear device like this cipher, anything is possible. There's many ways that nuclear weapons are armed. Can't get into any specifics. There's state-sponsored, and then there's non-state-sponsored. State-sponsored are going to have all kinds of different protocols in place, safeties, what have you, arming sequences. Non-state-sponsored, if someone is just going to make an improvised nuclear device like this cipher. It can be armed when it hears your voice, when my voice, whatever the case may be.
I speak without a mouth. I fly through the air without wings. What am I? An echo. That's it, that's it, that's it.
I can't even with this one. This is great. He's talking to it. How does he know if he answers this question, it's not going to go off?
It's empty.
Apparently, it was a mudsuck, right? A hoax IED or a hoax device. Real life, hoaxes are actually very common, especially in Iraq and Afghanistan. They were utilized as intelligence gathering devices, essentially. They'd put it in the road, totally fake, just something that would key up an EOD response, and then they would be watching and videotaping the whole procedure. Despite all of the craziness that was in the scene, using a hoax to gather intelligence on people and to learn more about them, absolutely true. We'll give this one an 8 up there with Rambo. "3 miles underwater. The water's crystal clear, so I mean no, there's no way. My 4th team, I was on a mine countermeasure team, but it was underwater sea mines and underwater IEDs and stuff like that. This is supposed to be a nuke that has fallen into the abyss. It's a big deal when we go to 200 feet of seawater. We're definitely not going to do free ascent to the bottom. There's always descent lines. We establish a safe area. Yeah, he doesn't have any search tools whatsoever. He just has his eyeballs and a flare, which is insane. And that's just the diving aspect, so we haven't even gotten to the EOD part of it.
You made it. We'll go step by step.
The communication is totally wazoo. It's 3 miles underwater. What RF signal can penetrate 3 miles worth of water? We do have very rudimentary ways of communicating, i.e. a float on the top of the water that's connected to us via a line, and we'll just pull it. And the certain number of pulls means a certain thing. So we communicate like that in a bottom mine centric environment where we're taking seismic and magnetic precautions. But yeah, nuke, that is a totally different ball game.
You have to cut the ground wire, not the lead wire.
Without getting into any super specifics on nuclear weapons design, we would have researched this ordnance item. This is exactly how you render it safe. If we want to separate components, separate the fuse from it. Sometimes we do that explosively, sometimes we do it mechanically, and then we just raise it up and bring it to the beach and exploit it on the surface. I'd have to give that a big fat donut for realism, a 0, because that's not at all how nuclear weapons function.
Here, McIntyre, can you hear me?
I love this show. It's so funny. Unexploded ordnance, UXO, those are very common because sometimes fuses just dud out, and it's still a threat because we just don't know the condition of it, right? Why did it not go off? Is it a time? Is it a proximity thing? Is it a delay that just hasn't gone all the way yet? So very much a concern, less so for everyone else that's behind cover, but mainly for the guys that are right on top of it.
Heartbeat's regular. You spring a leak? Stop ticking.
It is definitely plausible to use a stethoscope to examine a suspected clockwork fuse. Seems hokey, but yeah, that is old school legit. It was a thing for old bombs like that. They had clockwork mechanisms in the fuse that you could hear ticking down. We don't see that a lot anymore. That was a lot of training in school just to get the exposure to it.
It was a propaganda bomb.
Leaflets are definitely employed. They were dropped in all over Europe during World War II. They were employed in, North Korea, Vietnam. Leaflets are definitely a type of psychological warfare, or even just a means to communicate with a population that just is confined to an area. But yeah, I'd give it a solid 7 for realism. Granted, 2 random people would not be working on this bomb, but yeah, so we got to dock it a little bit. I just don't know why they didn't have any bomb squad people.
So on the side of the timer, there should be a serial number. That'll tell me which wire y'all need to cut.
Archer here is showing an inexperienced person being coached through this whole ordeal like many other movies and TV shows. It would be almost impossible unless it was set up exactly how the manufacturer wanted it to be set up. If that's the case, totally doable, right? I can walk you through anything. It's like, okay, cool. How many wires are there? What colors are they?
You ready?
Roger!
First letter is B.
Bravo.
Thanks. Second letter is
M as in Mike.
Oh my God, that is so spot on as far as communications, especially when hitting the fan. I can relate. You have radio frequencies, you have interference, you have distance, you have other things in the way, so your signal can be degraded. Everyone is getting ramped up in this episode, but in real life, when stuff is going on and comms are an issue, you just really stay calm and cool and collective on the radio. That way, even if it is a weak signal, you can still hear what's being said.
I'm doing it. God.
Oh my God, Ray!
What's going on?
The timer sped up!
The trope here with the green wires being cut and speeding up the clock is just erroneous. It makes no sense to have that feature in there unless you're trying to create some type of anxiety. And in real life, trust me, if you're faced with a live explosive that can detonate at any action, keeping that at bay is already going to be difficult enough. So yeah, at the end of the day, people want their things to go off, so that's how they make them. I'll give them a 4. The communication piece, that was hilariously accurate.
Bombs aren't on the same fire line. I have to defuse them individually.
How long is that going to take?
I gotta find them and then dismantle them. 30 minutes.
There's just like a chunk of high explosive taped to a pipe. EOD would see that and boom, and make a call, and everyone would get out of there except for one other person, him and one other security person, and then I'm going to take immediate action on that device. And immediate is immediate. It's not 30 minutes. He was using a mirror for whatever reason. I'm not going to use an inspection mirror when I have my eyeballs and I can see all the way around it. So yeah, that's kind of hokey. He's got nods on his helmet, so that's cumbersome, especially when he's working on that one that was at head level. His nods could hit it, and if there's an anti-move thing on there, boom, he just functioned it as designed. So I would take my helmet off so there's nothing, no obstructions that could potentially hit this device. If he's the only one there, yeah, that's what he's got to do. It's because it's threat assessment of what's going to kill me right now. That's an enemy combatant. He's probably going to kill me if he sees me, so that needs to be taken care of first. But yeah, he would have at least one shooter with him a little bit of ways, so when I'm working, I can be focused on this. They could have classed it up a little bit, but all good.
Bingo.
He did use ceramic scissors at the end. I thought that was a nice touch, granted. He used ceramic scissors instead of diagonal cutters, and typically when wires are coiled up like that, there's 2 of them, and he cut them both. He could have smushed the 2 wires that are conductive together and set it off. Yeah, there's a lot of hokey stuff, so yeah, it's got to be low 3.
Towards the general direction of the mountain?
The robot rarely finds what you're looking for.
They're in Helmand, which I was also in Helmand, Helmand province in Afghanistan. And yeah, robots are awesome. I didn't see the robot go down with a tool. Tool in, tool out, that's what we do. That's what's preached from day 1 in EOD school. The robot has cutters on it, it has grippers, can separate components, whatever the case may be. So if it did find something, it could countercharge it, or they could set it down.
No!
At the end of the day, that is what a robot is for. They are expendable devices. If worst comes to worst, they find something by functioning it, it blows up, not a human being. The entire team was standing out in front of the vehicles. That's totally not what would happen. They would be inside their vehicle driving this robot. That way you have mitigation from fragmentation coming at you. At least be behind the vehicle, for God's sake.
I need you to keep your head still. Don't nod.
This is a clothespin switch, very old, very rudimentary, very easy to defeat. Nick, the EOD operator, should have seen that. He identified that it's a pull. Cool, cut it, right? Just cut it and be done with it. But he did the thing of holding his head. You tell someone that they're connected to a line with a bunch of explosives, they're gonna freak out. That's one of the rare times where you can actually attack a switch. It's very clear cut.
We need
Boss! Boss!
That could have been handled way differently, and then everyone would have survived. It's tough, you know. A lot of EOD procedures and tactics are written in blood, just like this. The survivors, like, okay, this is exactly what they encountered over the radio. This is what was said. Now we have our new set of TTPs, so it doesn't happen again. I'll give this one a 5. It's got some stuff, some super hokey stuff, but all in all, not bad.
What are you doing?
I can get it out over the bay.
The plausibility of having a bomb that is unable to be rendered safe, it's all a matter of time, really. If time is, you know, not an object, then yeah, you can spend the time and the diligence and really get it disassembled to where it's, you know, it's demilled. So now you have to weigh, can I render this safe in 1 minute and 30 seconds or not? And the answer is probably no, right? Because especially with a device as sophisticated as that was supposed to be, your best case is you have 1 minute and 30 to get this as far away from everyone as possible. Yeah, water is has a great tamping effect because it cannot compress. It really depends on what the actual explosive, the nuclear yield of this bomb was and how deep it was able to go. The mission of EOD is protection of personal and property. So yeah, getting that device out and away, moving it, relocating it, even if it's to your own demise, is what we would do for the sake of protecting personal and property. Is it a 9? Can Batman be a 9? I'll give it a 9. I like to think his actions were genuine of Navy EOD. I'm gonna have to say my favorite bomb disposal scene of all time has got to be the scene in MacGruber. Totally outlandish, but so funny. But if I'm going for something with good sentiment, then today we saw that Batman video, and I think that really captured the quintessential mindset of Navy EOD about eliminating a threat to civilian population and mitigating the risk and moving it away.
My name is David Harris. I was a Special Forces Weapons Sergeant in 3rd Special Forces Group. I went to sniper school and as well as Mortar Infantry Leaders course. Today we're going to look at explosions. He wasn't at a super high elevation, so his backblast was fine. He didn't have anyone behind him, so no one was going to be messed up by the rocket actually taking off. For this scenario, most of the rockets everyone's shooting is going to have backblast, which is just the fire or the explosion of the round taking off. So the more elevation you put, the more that fire is going to come out and burn your legs. Or if someone's right behind you, they're going to eat all that blast of the rocket going off. You can stand directly on the sides and shoot rockets like that. So the explosion shown in the scene hitting the helicopter is actually what it would look like. It wouldn't be some overwhelming, like a big fireball. Probably the reason that RPG was able to hit that is because it's just point fired, which means it doesn't have something it's actually locking onto. It's not locked, it's just basically like a bullet. I point it in this direction, I fire at it. So it's harder to maneuver from. I would rate Black Hawk Down on a scale of 1 to 10 for realism, a 9. They pulled in a lot of resources from militarily, guys that were there. Like I know they used Rangers to actually do the fast rope scenes. He pulled the pin and he threw it, and then you saw the spool kick off as it was going and everything else. Yes, it was accurate. Is there anything they could have done? No, honestly, you want to stay out of hallways, stairwells, and like you don't really want to deal with ladders and things that change elevation because it's a harder thing to cover. And yeah, the guy was watching it, but the dude wasn't even seeing. He just threw it down. Yeah, and that's all they have to do, even in a stairwell. Like you can't really do anything if he throws a grenade down on you. So the typical hand grenade time is about 4 to 5 seconds. Kill radius is about 5 meters. And the radius of injury is about 15 to 20. Fuse variants can give a F1 grenade anywhere from 0 to 13 seconds. And yes, you can protect others by jumping on the hand grenade to save your buddies. It's ultimate sacrifice, honestly. It's actually a guy did that when I was in Iraq in 2007. A Marine did that, came in his Humvee, dropped it off a bridge, and he dove down on it. I would rate this movie a 9, jumping on the grenade and how the explosion went. It was very realistic. Nope, not at all. Them claymores would not do that much damage. Basically what a claymore is, it's a 1.5 pound of C4 with about 700 to 800 ball bearings on it. And you blow it up and it scatters and can go out. And the kill radius is about 50 meters. They use them to go defensive. You were designed to actually like get in your patrol base and put those out so guys couldn't sneak up on you. And then the other way of using them was in ambushes. You open up with those because they're going to produce a mass casualty. It's not blowing up, taking out 2 buildings. Pellets aren't going to do that. When we were in the old days of wars, we used flamethrowers to go after bunkers. So the standoff of that was like 75 meters. From what I know of the quad tube rocket launcher, that weapon system was designed so that we could get more standoff from the bunkers themselves. They were designed to be bunker busters, where you could get more standoff. That was up to about 150 to 200 meters. So now the guy didn't have to run up there with a flamethrower and gas on his back on a bunker where they were getting shot at. The rocket launchers weren't designed to shoot at moving targets. They were designed for bunkers, a stationary target. But if you were in a pinch, let them rip. They weren't heat seeking. So they didn't have to pick up a heat signature. Just like we said with the RPGs, it's a point and fire weapon. So if anything's point and fire, I don't need, it could be used in any way I need it to be used. A blast from a grenade would not send 2 dudes doing somersaults into the air. They're not designed for that. They are, it's an area fire weapon. And honestly, those 2 dudes, because it's about a 5 to 15 meter kill zone, those dudes would have been dead on impact. They're gonna go up and out, and then that's why that 5 meters kill zone, if they're right on top of it within that zone, they're gonna get hit with a lot of fragmentation, which is just the pellets and everything flying in different directions. I would rate this a 3.
What's he doing?
I wouldn't do that, but yeah, okay. When you're attaching explosive to other objects, you have a couple of options. You have double-sided sticky tape. You put the tape on here, and then it's another piece of tape on the other side. So it's double-sided, so I can stick it. And then you have the claymore itself actually has 2 legs, prongs, that you pull down, and then they split like this. So you can actually have 2 legs and put it in and move it like a little bit up and down. Claymores weigh less than 6 pounds. You can put as much tape as you want as long as it holds, right? As long as it holds it up, it's gonna work. I would not use duct tape to attach any explosive to anything unless I was in a pinch and I had no other choices. It does look like an accurate explosion on the size and force. The guy who blew it up got messed up too, because it says, yeah, front toward enemy, but you're gonna eat some of that too. It's got a cone where it's 180 gonna come back towards you. So that's why you have to have the standoff that you want so you don't eat that overpressure and the actual concussion of the explosion. So him being jacked up too, yeah, I agree. I would rate this 6. And the reason why is because I honestly don't think that tape would have held up from the rounds impacting nonstop. I think he had 2 pieces of tape on there. You're gonna need a whole lot of that duct tape.
It's the root of all.
So the M14 mine is called the toe popper. A toe popper wasn't designed to blow a dude in half. It was designed to maim. Claymores, I'm trying to kill as many people as possible, as quick as possible. This is designed to maim 1 dude.
Jesus! David, don't move, don't move.
The toe popper was designed for when the pressure is applied, not released. So we all walk heel to toe and roll our feet, right? So you hit your heel, you roll, and boom. So as soon as you put the weight onto the toe popper, it's designed to go off. Because if it was as simple as you stepped on it, well then the weapon system wouldn't work. When I was in Afghanistan, if we found something that we thought was a mine, the Charlie would come up, and then I would be out there with my security, and he would look to see if it was command detonated, which means someone's actually calling to set it off, or if it was actually it's self-initiated, basically. You roll over it. Us, we bring our trucks up because we had jammers. So just because you don't see a wire doesn't mean the dude can't call in on his cell phone.
Twice around your body. Boom. Like that.
Come on, man. So director Spike Lee actually pulled this account from a real-life Vietnam veteran that claimed this happened, but the events are disputed. That's not going to work in real life. The toe popper was designed as soon as pressure went on it. Let's throw that away. I'm gonna give you a rope and expect you to tie it around yourself without shifting any weight in any direction. That's probably unfeasible because you're moving. So once you start moving, weight's gonna shift a little bit. It should go off. So the first guy that stepped on the mine blew him in half. That's a big explosion, we would think. Couldn't have been a toe popper then, because the second explosion, shouldn't you get some of that? We didn't pull you that far off. It had to be two different type of mines because it's not enough. A toe popper wasn't designed to blow a dude in half. I would rate this a 4 because I don't believe that you could be yanked off the toe popper because it wasn't designed to go off when the weight was removed. The size of that explosion, yes, it was the right size.
Hold with 2 hands, President. Here it goes.
The depiction of the explosion itself, I would say, yeah, that was realistic. The direction he held it in was probably the best, because anything else, it would have hit the car more. It may not set you on fire, but you're gonna feel it. I would stop the vehicle for a split second, fire the rocket, like I would have everything ready, and then soon as I'd be like, okay, stop, fire, and then we drive. That would make me the most accurate at that point.
I lost the rocket launcher. You lost? How do you lose a rocket launcher?
Because the heat was on his neck, so he dropped it. I would tell you if I fired it and then I felt the heat coming up on me and I'm not used to it, like I wasn't expecting it, I probably would let it go too. I would rate this 4.
Aim. Shoot!
Would that work in real life? Actually, yes. As long as that grenade is on that arrow and it holds onto it the whole time in flight, you're good. The issue would be how good you're shooting with the arrows, how fast the time in flight of how far you need to shoot that arrow. The effect you would have with an arrow is probably distance. The biggest thing would be distance, how far I could throw it. Because the arrow bow is gonna get my arrow go further faster than my arm is gonna get it. The grenade is not designed to set fires everywhere and it's burning. Now, if it's secondary explosions, maybe, but not like that, no. You threw the grenade blew up, and it set his gas tank up, and then his gas tank blew up. like, I would need all these things to happen, which could be extremely lucky, but I doubt it. A grenade cannot flip a motorcycle over like that. They're not designed for that. They're fragmentation, so it probably won't stop the vehicle. At best, you'll injure the people on the vehicle, and if it doesn't kill them, they'll just drive the vehicle off. So it's not designed for stopping the vehicles. I would rate this a 3, because all the explosions and all that stuff, it wouldn't happen. I've used the 40 mic grenade launchers with the Mark 19 and the Mark 47, which are basically machine guns, but they're designed for 40 mic grenades. I've used those on top of trucks a lot. And those are made because of area fire weapons in mountains. You want to cover more ground. It's not designed to have that kind of impact on explosion. It's 40 mic. It's not a huge round. Like you would need a bigger round, like you're talking Gustav. HE round is carrying way more punch than make it blow up. Or you're gonna hit that thing with like 12 rounds straight, a 40 mic. I've seen guys use them for breaking contact. You get shot at and you're trying to get away, so you may have it. So actually, they use that exact kind of grenade launcher, a 6-shooter, that you actually crank it and he went shot 6 rounds and took off so he could get some kind of cover fire down. 40 Mike's not really designed to use up close, but he didn't just point shoot it at people. When it was time for that, that went away, he grabbed his rifle. His weapon manipulations was very smooth, very fluid. The reloading of the weapon system, he was on point with. I rated a 6. I don't think the explosion would have did that to the plane, like unless it was, like we talked earlier, secondary explosion. I like the movie though. You're not outrunning that explosion. Like the explosion itself would be almost simultaneous. Unless you set every single different explosion on a different piece of time. So you have time fuse and det cord. Well, chances are you're gonna set everything on det cord because you want it all to go. Time fuse, that doesn't make any sense to do it that way, unless you plan on someone trying to outrun the explosion. So if your helicopter is in the line of sight of a RPG, if you're 200 meters, it's coming hot. Chances of dodging it as a full helicopter, probably gonna be slim, but if you could get on it early, yeah, and depending on where he was aiming, you might be able to get out the way. They'll know to do maneuvers, like they'll slow down, speed up. Then they also have flares they'll drop, because if it's heat they're looking for, dropping flares will hopefully get it off of you. If someone threw something in the middle like that, in between the rocket and the helicopter, probably blow up, but all the shrapnel and everything and all the overpressure still is gonna go into that helicopter. So you're not gonna get away unscathed. I would rate this clip a 2. The chances are that helicopter not receiving anything or not even rocking from the explosion, not even like losing itself a little bit, that ain't gonna happen. Flashbang grenade is designed to get momentum or get the guys back on their feet. Like they know we're out there, they're pulling defense, we're about to go in. What can we do to get them to be like, what is that? Like look over and be like, what is going on? Say we're using a 3-banger or a 5-banger, not a single banger, right? Well, he's hiding behind a dresser. Okay, we know he's behind the dresser. We want to flush him out from behind it. Throw that flashbang over the top of there. And let it pop on him a couple of times. He may come out of that corner because there's no point of us going in if we can get him to come out. It went under the vehicle, which was going to stop some of the light, but the explosion was pretty intense. We wouldn't go in there if it was doing that. We always wore eye and ear protection. Ours was more like a flash, like pop, 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 because we could be in the room with it. Like this one, it seemed like it was an aggressive explosion to make them be more disoriented. Because you're not wearing ear protection or anything, you're ringing at the ears, your head would be more a fog. Your balance, depending on how close you are to it, how much you took of the pressure of that explosion. When I was doing a lot of stuff in the CRIF, like when we trained there, we used 9-bangers, which meant it went off 9 times. So it went pop, 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 pop. So we don't want to just throw it, let it go off 9 times and then sit outside. Because now he gets back on his feet. Like he's not stunned no more. As soon as he gets stunned, we need to be on top of him. I rate this 8.
Broken arrow! I say again! Broken arrow!
This scene portrays the Battle of Ia Drang during the Vietnam War, and the Americans were so overrun they had to call Broken Arrow for air support. When a soldier calls in a broken arrow, that basically means you're being overrun your position and you need as much air support as possible.
We have planes stacked up at every 1,000 feet!
Because they actually told the commander where to stack, how much he had, what he had. Like, those are real messages you would tell your guy. You don't want to send 2 planes at the same elevation. So you stack them. So that way they're flying in their own, they have their own lane that they don't have to worry about hitting other planes. You may stack them because of the weapon systems they have. Like, hey, I need this to drop before this. If you are being overrun, I've seen plane go offensive once, ever, much as it takes.
Get down!
You also have a thing with mortars and this called danger close. If I'm being overrun, At some point, I may tell you, hey, I need you to drop this close. And usually when you're gonna drop this, like danger close, they're gonna ask for the commander's initials. We need someone that is in charge saying, okay. I rate this as about a 9. I thought these explosions were realistic because from what I've seen of drops, with the grass and everything like that, depending on what you were dropping, I'm pretty sure this is how it probably looked real life. My favorite explosion I watched today was Commando, just because I think it was over the top. The most realistic explosion I watched today was the Black Hawk Down, when they hit with the rocket. It seemed the most realistic for what I've seen on combat rotations.
My name's Nicholas Irving. I'm a former U.S. Army Ranger Special Operations Sniper. I'm also known as the Reaper for my 33 confirmed kills in Afghanistan. Today I'm back again to look at some more sniper scenes from TV and film.
I may have a shot.
Absolutely not. She's offhand, like there's no support. It's all muscling it in to make that shot. And that gun, well, yeah, no. The Olympic Arms, K-23B is what it is. That weapon is like literally accurate for, up to like 50 meters. That distance looks like it's about, at most, a couple of 100 yards. Put it back in the case and go back and get a different one.
It's not clean. Repeat, I do not have a clean shot.
Yeah, I don't think she had a clean shot at all. In the military, a clean shot would be, you're not gonna wound or injure or kill something you don't intend to. If her target is one of those two men, that bullet, it's a 5.56, it's gonna zip right through the bad guy and potentially wound or kill the guy she's trying to help out or save.
I say take the shot. I can't, I may hit one. Take the bloody shot.
If I was forced to take the shot, I'll pull the trigger, but I'm not gonna guarantee you anything. Luckily, the train does kind of like come towards her as opposed to moving left to right. That takes out so much more of the mathematics behind making a shot. When it's moving closer or away from you, it's all about just aiming above the target or a little bit below the target, as opposed to, aiming in front of it and having that individual essentially run into the bullet. I would rate it a 1. Like, it's just not happening at all. That little good tactical deep breath pause, before the shot was really good. To be more precise, you essentially have to be calm. And one of the easiest ways to calm your body down or right before a shot is to just take deep breaths and get the blood circulating. I would have got more square behind the rifle as opposed to like having my legs off to the side like that. Maybe got down like in a squatting stance or on my knees and kind of put my weight behind the gun. That way when it recoils, it's kind of more of a straight back motion and not this motion. He's gonna pretty much get that just because of his body alignment and the way he's holding the rifle. Yeah, I think it was smart for him to let the vehicle get closer to him. Everybody thinks being a sniper, we want the longest, furthest shots, but ideally you want the closer ones just because it makes your job that much easier. And it's almost like 100% guarantee you're gonna hit. But with that, if I'm protecting someone and I shoot the vehicle within, a few yards from him, the guy is still gonna get hit by the moving vehicle. I don't like that the car just did a triple axle like 20 feet from the guy. Like, that's not how that works at all. The only moving vehicles that I've shot, I was a machine gunner, and I've never once made a car flip over. Normally they just crash into a wall or crash into another parked car, just roll off the side of the road into the desert. I'd give it a 6. The only thing that's pulling me back, or giving it a lesser number, is because of the sniper waiting for the car to get closer. I mean, as far as being a highly accurate sniper rifle, concealed as a flute, I don't think so. There's a lot of big things on a sniper rifle that makes it accurate, but the barrel is like really important. And Most barrels on sniper rifles are fluted and floated. There's like no interference between the barrel and the stock of the gun as to not like interfere with the harmonics when it goes off. That flute looks like one continuously long object. It probably is accurate, maybe at the distances that he's shooting at, but I also don't know what caliber he's shooting. But it's Tom Cruise, so it's probably really accurate. I'd give the female sniper the best position. Whatever she's in, that little room or the designs on the walls, I think that really gives her an advantage. It almost is like shooting out of a loophole. It's like a tactic snipers used overseas where you punch a small hole through a wall or something and a sniper would back away from the wall and shoot through that hole to hit an object outside. The guy with the shades on, he's not really in a concealed position, but I guess he's using his attire to make him least stand out. Worst position, I'd have to say Tom Cruise. Any sniper rifle can be suppressed, even up to like 50 caliber sniper rifles. You're still gonna hear like a noise. It sounds like a clap, a loud clap, or if you took a ruler and smacked it on a desk, unless you use like subsonic rounds, which he may be using in this instance where I could see nobody else would really hear anything. Shooting lights are actually extremely hard to do. Like, that was one of our things overseas sometimes when an assault team is going up on a building, they want the light shot out for them to make it dark, and it's actually pretty tough because it blurs out everything and it's hard to find exactly, I guess, where the middle is at. I'll give it a 5. Those shots are possible, but I don't think that this scenario setup is that realistic. I grew up watching this movie. It's like one of the reasons why I wanted to become a sniper. Every sniper, you have your rifle and you have your ghillie suit. What it essentially does is break up the outline of the human body and mimics or makes you appear to be brush or foliage. But it's not just the ghillie suit that's what makes you camouflage. What you're gonna really wanna do is put a bunch of natural vegetation into the ghillie suit so you look more like the natural surrounding as opposed to just this big pile of ghillie suit.
5 on the legs.
You have the spotter and you have the sniper. The spotter is the one who's not pulling the trigger and he's holding up or using a spotting scope. Through his, it looked like a red dot camera thing or something like that, and that's just not what it looks like. Either you're gonna have a reticle that mimics or is similar to what the sniper's using, these mil dots or radian lines that are gonna give you your distance and be able to track where the bullet impacts.
He's moving. 650. Range me.
Being a sniper, it's like 80 to 90% of your job is observation. It's actually really rare that a sniper does get a chance to pull the trigger. Most of our stuff is just relaying information, watching stuff, taking pictures, and telling the commanders what's going on the ground. So you can be out there for as long as the job needs. I think everything he did there was just fine. Looks like he's using like an M24 sniper rifle, could be. Or something similar to that, a variant, but like they're good out to like 800 meters and 650 yards. Like that's far, but it's not that far for like a sniper. And a body shot, which is what I normally aim for, was perfect. Like that's all you're gonna go for at that distance. My only issue would probably have something soft underneath his rifle. Maybe put down a pack or his backpack or something, to rest it on. That helps with the harmonics and having the rifle bounce and get all the way from you. I give it a 7. I was gonna give it an 8, but a 7 because the sniper scope and the reticles and all that stuff just didn't make any sense. To stay still when you're pinned down by a sniper, it's like almost a death wish. It's just a matter of time before he's going to figure something out to make those bullets impact. Running zigzag patterns, getting out as fast as you can is probably your best bet. To prevent an enemy coming in to do what just happened here, sneak up behind you. In sniper school, they teach you no more than like 2 shots. 2 or 3 shots, your sniper hide is burnt. You would want to move ideally to a new location. Once you have a good sniper hide set up, the odds of you like getting out after that 2nd shot, 3rd shot, it's slim. But there are countermeasures to deter people from entering that sniper hide. Like for us, we might put up a claymore or some booby traps or something like that behind us, or even a guy with a machine gun is usually watching our back. That actually wasn't too bad, and it's at nighttime with no night vision, so I'll give him that. We hit targets at nighttime, but the distances are extremely close. We had a sniper scope that was mounted with a PVS 14, I believe, which is a night vision attachment that goes on the front of your scope. Bolt guns, bolt rifles, they jam all the time, especially in like dusty conditions. That bolt gun, when you pull it back, it's exposed to the elements. And it's such a slower process as opposed to like a semi-automatic where the bolt is coming back extremely fast. So it's more prone to collect dust and things of that nature that would cause it to jam up. Man, this is getting tough. I don't know. I'd give it a 6 because realistically, shooting at nighttime like that, I could see you missing that much. I've debated doing this when I was pinned down by a sniper in Afghanistan, taking my helmet off. If that's your last resort and all you're trying to do is locate a sniper's position, I would have probably stuck my helmet up like on the tip of my gun and dangled it up as opposed to like throw it. I might need that for later, but there's no way that enemy sniper would have hit that though. Like back in World War II, snipers used to use the trees to hide in and shoot from. And there really is no benefit to hiding in a tree. Once they find you out, all they have to do is, center all their guns onto that tree and chop it down. Hiding underneath the tree are like in the hole of the tree where some of them get, hollowed out. I could see that, but I'm scared of bugs, so that's not for me. As far as taking the shot when he took it, 9 times out of 10, if a sniper's being sent out, it's to overwatch his guys and make sure nothing happens to them. But if we're already engaged in targets and we're already being shot at, then anything that's moving on that opposite end that is a threat or has a weapon is going to get shot. So yeah, he had every right to pop a few rounds off at this guy. I would have too. I'd give it a 9 just because I've been in like a situation where I debated taking my helmet off and using it as a decoy. So I was an on-set tech advisor on this film and also played the dead guy that he got the radio from. Should have won an award for it, best dead guy ever. But that sand was real. We were really like in the desert and it was brutal. It's extremely hard to aim through, we call it a brownout, where it's just like a little, I guess, dust storm that rolls through. You can't see anything. So you're definitely not gonna be able to make a shot, especially at the distances that he's going for with that much dust blowing around, obscuring his vision.
Give me back my 4! 6 miles right!
I'm not going to say it's impossible to take out an enemy sniper who's hiding amongst stuff like that. The hardest thing the good sniper is going to have to do is locate him. From what I remember, I recall it being over 1,000 meters away, which is extremely, extremely far to be conducting a counter sniper operation. The sound of the rifle that John Cena is firing in the movie is not how it sounds in real life. Like this sounds like a semi-automatic rifle with like a suppressor on it or something like that. In real life, that gun is just a big thunderous boom, a big bang. The way he was shooting in the movie, it's kind of like it's a semi-automatic as opposed to him cranking the bolt back every time and the sound is off.
Please tell me you got it.
Yeah, he was dead from the get-go. Like shooting in an open area and a sniper has eyes on you, there's really nothing you can do about it unless you are going to get up and just take a chance and run for it. Just crawling away slowly wouldn't work. He's just going to watch you crawl and decide when to shoot anyway. So it's a lose-lose. This scene here, I don't think I worked that day. So no, I only have so much control. But this scene I would rate like I'm doing this to myself. I'm going to give it a 5. I don't know if I would be comfortable with taking that shot through the windshield portion of a helicopter. Bullets act funny when they hit objects, and the first object that bullet is going to hit is that glass. And because it's curved, it's going to deflect the bullet up or down, left or right. There's really no, determining factor as to where that bullet's going to land at. So 1 shot, 1 kill for that helicopter scene, not so much. From underneath the car, that's actually a good thing to do. I've shot from underneath various vehicles and structures and stuff like that, especially like in an urban environment. You're going to encounter so much debris and rubble on the battlefield or where you're fighting from, so you have to make do with what you have. The only issue was like her hand placement on the rifle. Like she already has the bipods. I don't see a need to have her hand underneath it, supporting it as well. It's just extra weight dangling for no reason. I would have probably had my support hand closer or holding the buttstock into my shoulder pocket as opposed to that. During sniper school, we were always told to call in an airstrike when up against another sniper, because it's really tough to take out or fight against. I believe she's shooting like a .762 caliber round, which is well within the capabilities of taking out a target at that distance. The odds of it being dead on at whatever range he was would have meant that she would have had to know that distance ahead of time and kind of dial in her scope for that. Instead, she just stuck it on there and pulled the trigger on the head. It's not really like that. But other than that, I think she did pretty good. Given the circumstances, I would have probably done the same thing, but I'd give it an 8. She looked really calm behind it. And some of the best snipers I know are female. Ooh. Yeah, so this movie is based off of an actual sniper, Miss Pavlichenko. She was credited with over 309 kills, and as far as putting that bullet through the tank like that, I don't know. I've only aimed at a tank one time and it was by accident. And I was quickly reminded, don't do that again when they pointed the big cannon my way. She went into her bubble. Carlos Hathcock, a Marine Corps sniper, called it getting into his bubble. That's what she's doing when all these mortar shells and explosions are going off around her. It's getting into that bubble. Being able to shut that outside world off of the chaos and calming down and ignoring everything to pull off a shot. I can relate to that 110%. No, so bullets don't travel in a straight line like that. They travel at an arc, even at 100 yards. So to win that battle, you have to aim higher, causing the bullet to go up and hit its apex point and fall back down. All snipers are just like really good NFL quarterbacks. He's throwing it up and they're falling into the target, and bullets work the same exact way. Because it was based on a true story, I'll give it a 9, not a 10, just because the bullet trajectory. Females, women make the best snipers out there.
No shot.
Abandoned selective targeting. All targets are now free.
The distances he's shooting from, like, that's very plausible. Here it looks like he's maybe at most 150, 100 yards away, like less than that, because he's shooting down, so less than 50 yards possibly. The scope is not bad either. I'm used to like mil-dot scopes and Horus reticles, and they look like busy Christmas trees, like without the lights on inside of sniper scopes. But it was a very simple reticle. Shooting in a crowded environment is extremely tough. During the international sniper competition that I attended, that was one of the challenges, was to shoot moving targets amongst a crowd. It's extremely hard to do, but our distances were way further than what he appears to be shooting by like a lot. At the angles he was given and the distances, it's not that complicated. Just worrying about where the bullet's gonna hit after you hit your target would be like my only concern, because they're in so close proximity to each other, it has a possibility of getting hit too. I would give it a solid 8. It's highly realistic. The scopes are always messed up. I don't understand why they just don't put a real scope reticle in there. So this is an actual spotting scope, similar to what the individual or the sniper's using in the movie. And he's using it pretty correctly, like he's using it for target detection to identify where a threat may be. He noticed a little bullet on the ledge of that window, and then, finding things that were out of place that didn't make sense, and eventually finding where the sniper was. It's something you see rare in movies, the actual use of target detection and how important it is for a sniper to find the smallest details and things that are out of place to find out, find who they're looking for. What you want to do is be pushed back away from the hole and not put the barrel protruding outside of the hole. Gives your position away and alleviates that whole purpose of why you made that hole in the first place. I'll give it a 7. I love the use of target detection, but he messed up putting the barrel through the hole. My favorite sniper scene of all time would have to be from the movie Lone Survivor. They had their sniper rifle and they were engaging targets in the woods. And that was like the most realistic war scene I have ever seen in my life.
Hi, my name is Elliot Ackerman. I am a Marine Corps veteran. I served multiple deployments in Iraq and Afghanistan. These days, I am an author. Today, we'll be looking at Marine Corps scenes.
You will be a weapon. You will be a minister of death, praying for war. You trying to squeeze an inch in on me somewhere, huh?
Full Metal Jacket is sort of totemic. I mean, everyone has seen Full Metal Jacket. And you kind of almost get into this cycle where even if Full Metal Jacket wasn't 100% accurate, enough people have seen Full Metal Jacket and then portrayed Full Metal Jacket in the Marine Corps that it now becomes the Marine Corps. Marine drill instructors are incredibly professional in my experience, but their profession is to be terrifying, very intimidating, to be exemplars of sort of the highest standards of what a Marine can be and how a Marine should carry himself or herself and look. I mean, Arlie Army was a drill instructor, so he was basically just sort of dusting off his drill instructor moves for this film. Today, it isn't quite as brutal and profanity-laced, but I can certainly imagine in 1967 that there was.
Pray! This is my rifle. There are many like it, but this one is mine.
I went to officer candidate school. As Marine Corps officers, we did not recite the Rifleman's Creed, but I know for Marine recruits absolutely do. I think the Rifleman's Creed was written during World War II by, I believe it was a Marine major wrote it, and that's when it kind of made its way into Marine recruit training, and it's stayed there ever since. And this is all part of giving, in imbuing Marines with this understanding that every Marine is a rifleman.
Pop that blister. Holy Jesus. What is that?
Well, obviously it's about health and it's about fitness, but it's also about attention to detail. It's like for the same reason that if you're sitting in a defensive position as a Marine one night and you've got your fields of fire set up, it has to be precise. And so it's sort of teaching that constant attention to detail, the inspection of everything, and the adherence to standards. And if you deviate from that, you will incur the wrath of the drill instructor.
What is that, Private Pile?
Sir, jelly donuts, sir!
I will say, because we have the jelly donut scene up, the Marine Corps is an elite fighting force, but inevitably there are some Marines who can struggle with height and weight standards. So I remember when I entered the Marine Corps, one of my first collateral duties as a Marine officer in my infantry unit was I was the body composition officer. Once a month, I would have to, put them on the scale and take a tape measure around them and make sure that, they weren't like Private Pile and eating too many jelly donuts. Full Metal Jacket, 10 out of 10. This movie really kind of went to great pains to get everything exactly right.
It was my second deployment. We were in the Korengal Valley. A villager's donkey had been killed.
No disrespect to Barry, I like the show, but I don't think they totally nailed this scene. That's not what the Korangal Valley looks like. And the Korangal Valley, which is in northeastern Afghanistan, is actually really pretty lush, lots of greenery. This is more of like a desert scene. So maybe something you'd see in southern Afghanistan or in western Iraq. I imagine they probably picked the Korangal Valley because of all the places in Afghanistan where fighting was very intense. Marines are often sent to theaters of combat where the fighting is the most intense and can often be used as shock troops. But the conventional Marine Corps units in Afghanistan were mainly assigned to the southern portion of the country in Helmand province, which was one of the most violent parts of the war.
Well, then God knows that
So another part of this that doesn't seem that realistic is he's rendering first aid, but he's just sort of sitting there kind of putting a pressure dressing on his face. And one of the first things they teach you is if you're going to render first aid, you immediately get somebody out of danger. So we've just sort of left this guy where he was shot, which means he can probably get shot again. It's obviously very chaotic because you need to not only make sure that the Marines who've been hurt are being treated and stabilized, but then you also have to, under fire, figure out how you're going to, get a medical evacuation coordinated.
No. This silent ass Barry here's a stone cold killer, fellas. I was gonna take the bib off, but forget it.
I think everyone who serves doesn't necessarily have PTSD when they come back, but I think most people who've served or seen combat, you try to make meaning and make sense out of the experiences that you've had. And I think one of the things a show like Barry does in a very interesting way is it shows him, that character throughout this, trying to, make meaning and trying to understand these experiences. I wish they got on the Korangal part a little bit better, but I think the themes of the show are great. 6.5, maybe rounding to a 7. I think this is a much better clip. I've been ambushed a few times in my military career, and I think there is initially a sense of disorientation, and then once you quickly orient on where you're being ambushed from, you have to make tactical decisions very quickly, all of which are well depicted in this scene. So one of the things you're taught when you get ambushed is to immediately get out of what they call the kill zone. Your job is to get out of that section of road where you're being ambushed. That can be very difficult to do sometimes because people are, trucks are getting destroyed, people are getting wounded, but as much as you can, you want to get out of that kill zone.
Slow down!
So this sequence is from the spring of 2003. So, in this case, it depicts 1st Recon Battalion's work in the Iraq invasion, where I showed up in Iraq in the summer of 2004, so a little over a year later. But already the battlefield looked very different. We were in armored Humvees. These guys don't have armored Humvees. So I think they actually did a very good job in capturing the specific details of this time frame.
5 seconds to splashdown.
So airstrikes were frequently called in both Iraq and Afghanistan. So I think what's actually depicted in this scene is sort of how the Marines have pulled back, how they're trying to kind of isolate the objective so no one can move in or out of it, and how they're waiting. They call, okay, here comes the airstrike, and they're all watching, and then, boom, off it goes. I think one of the things that movies and TV fail to convey, and it's difficult to convey, is that the majority of combat is a lot of boredom and it's a lot of waiting. So frequently, if you were to watch a 2-hour movie, the amount of action you would see in a 2-hour movie would probably be the same amount of action someone would see in 7 months being deployed at war. I'll give it a 9 out of 10. I think a lot of the details are correct, so I think they've done a pretty good job in Generation Kill. So this is based in the Persian Gulf War, but I think if you look recently, yes, the Marines have spent quite a bit of time in the desert. So this is a Marine sniper platoon. Well, the way the Marine Corps typically uses its sniper platoons is it takes the snipers and it just sort of doles them out in 2-man teams to regular infantry platoons. But in this case, the whole sniper platoon seems to be sort of together walking through the desert. My understanding of the Persian Corps was, they were driving, they were in trucks, big mechanized columns. I mean, if you're walking, you're lucky to make, 10, 15 miles in a day.
Oh, man, those are A-10s. Warthogs, baby. Those things are tank killers.
So the A-10 Warthog is a ground attack plane, and it has a very large cannon on the front of it, and that cannon is designed to kill tanks or provide close air support. So the A-10 is much feared and is an extremely effective tank killer. I think one thing the clip gestures towards, which is accurate, was sort of there was, this prevalency of friendly fire incidents in the Gulf War. But there are incidents of friendly fire in every war. I have seen friendly fire incidents occur. Often they occur with regards to airstrikes, because it's just very difficult to communicate to a plane that's coming in at, hundreds of knots exactly where everybody is. I think it's difficult to overexpress how chaotic a battlefield is, and how difficult it is in that chaos to always understand, friend versus foe.
It's raining oil, fellas.
You better get used to it, because we're going to be living in it.
The scenes where the oil wells are burning and it's raining oil. I've read accounts of, of the oil wells getting torched, and we have Gulf War syndrome, kind of all the toxic chemicals that people had to deal with. So, so that to me all seems relatively accurate.
We have the shot. Over. Permission to fire. Fire.
What the frequency are you on?
The movie, I think, accurately displays the relationship between a sniper and his spotter. I think, one of the reasons that Marine snipers have this lore about them is that the Marine Corps is an institution, and our culture is such that, we believe that every Marine is a rifleman. So because every Marine is a rifleman, the sort of sine qua non of being a rifleman is being a sniper. That doesn't mean that snipers don't exist in other service branches. There are Army snipers, and the Naval Special Warfare there are snipers. But yes, the Marine Corps sniper has a special place in that organization's culture.
We have permission from the Colonel, sir.
Hitman 45, Hitman 45. This is Bravo 4.
God, dead anyway. Just let him do it.
You are way out of line, Corporal.
Now, specific to this case of like the major coming in and stealing the sniper's shot and calling in the airstrike, I don't know how realistic that is. Usually there's a million different things going on a battlefield, but I kind of understand the artistic license that's being used here and the message it's conveying. The movie Jarhead and the book Jarhead, are both works that really wrestle with that idea of, preparing for war and kind of going to war. So I'm sort of hesitant to ding them for that.
Jarhead. Noun. Slang for Marine.
Marines are called Jarheads because, traditionally Marines have like a high and tight haircut that they wear. So, very slim on the sides. I obviously do not have this haircut anymore, and just like a little bit on the top, so it kind of looks like a jar. And also because, Marines, were said to not be that smart. So it's almost like, we've got no brains. We're just a bunch of empty jarheads. So that's sort of, but like any pejorative nickname, it becomes a badge of honor. So Marines call each other, hey, Jarhead. So I know I'm kind of not giving you a clear one, but 7 out of 10 just on the, the meat and potatoes of, do the Humvees look right? Does this look right? But 8 out of 10 on some of the deeper themes that Jarhead tries to convey.
9 hostiles, 3 Marines.
Ghost 2, you are not to engage. Alpha team is on its way.
No time.
Well, I wish I could tell you this is exactly what it was like, because it looks like a lot of fun. Very entertaining, but not very realistic. Hostage rescue is typically not the responsibility of the Marines. That high-end hostage rescue is typically the responsibility of the Joint Special Operations Command, which is like SEAL Team 6 and Delta Force. I mean, there's a lot that's not accurate here. I mean, first of all, you see the way they're firing their weapons. Nobody's aiming their weapon. They're just sort of spraying at the waist and screaming, ah! I mean, that, screaming, ah, doesn't really help you hit anything. And Marines absolutely are trained in close quarters, hand-to-hand combat. But the way that combat looks in application is much different than what you see in a lot of Hollywood movies, which are sort of, very big, like kung fu gestures and roundhouse kicks. Most hand-to-hand combat quickly devolves into two people grappling with each other on the ground. And one of the first rules you learn of hand-to-hand combat is if there's anything nearby, like a helmet, a knife, the leg of a chair, you pick that up and you start, you use that as a weapon. You try to find a weapon. So the hand-to-hand combat in real life isn't quite as cinematic as you often see in movies or TV.
You guys ready to go home?
Yeah.
And there's lots of little inaccuracies you can see. Like, for instance, the helicopter gunship that seems to come in and save the day. That's a Soviet Hind helicopter. So I don't know what a Soviet helicopter is doing on a Marine combat rescue mission against Al-Qaeda in northern Iraq. So, yeah, not too accurate. Based on its realism, I'd give it about a 3. But based on fun, I'd give it like a 9. Well, it's very tough for me to be critical of Heartbreak Ridge because I love this movie. But it's not, parts of it are not that realistic. The opening when the helicopter kind of flies down and they jump out of it into the water, that's called helo casting. First of all, it's somewhat unrealistic that you would insert that way during the day. Usually you would do it at night so people couldn't see you. But furthermore, usually if you're helo casting, you would typically do it with a boat. So the whole point of telecasting is, the helicopter drops you far enough away that no one on the coast is going to know you were there. They sort of like pull up, that helicopter's like 150 meters off the coast, and then they just jump out in the middle of the day and like swim in so everyone can see them. So like it looks cool, but it doesn't really make a lot of sense. You see like 4 of them are all kind of bunched together there. You wouldn't kind of want that. Then they're in a heavy firefighting. Clint Eastwood just sort of says like, cover me, and like runs off, and it doesn't seem like anyone knows, what he's doing. So typically if you're moving through forested vegetation like that, you're gonna have a lot of dispersion between Marines, at least like, at least 5 to 10 meters between you, if not more. So, it doesn't seem like the most realistic.
Ayatollah rock and roller, baby.
So they find this bulldozer, and one of my favorite characters in all of movies, Stitch Jones, the Ayatollah of rock and roller, gets behind the bulldozer and charges at the machine gun position. So you might think this is the least realistic part of the movie. It's actually a little bit realistic. When we fought in Fallujah, we used D9 bulldozers. They were armored bulldozers, and we used them because a lot of the insurgents were in buildings. What's unrealistic is the way that when they use that bulldozer, sort of everybody just lines up behind the bulldozer following it in. That doesn't sort of make a lot of sense. But the idea that a bulldozer could be used in combat isn't actually as far-fetched as you might think. So I'm gonna rate this one a 7 out of 10 because it's Heartbreak Ridge. Again, this is an iconic Marine Corps movie. I can't go lower than 7 out of 10 for Heartbreak Ridge.
Sir, I got movement, second deck, 27.
They got hit by an IED, and so they're trying to sort of clear the surrounding area. One of the things with the IEDs in Iraq and particularly in Iraq, but also in Afghanistan, was they dramatically increased in lethality the longer the war went on. So I was in Iraq in 2004, 2005, and was myself hit with a couple of IEDs that I survived. If I had been in the same situation, hit with an IED probably 2 years later, I probably wouldn't be here talking to you today because the IEDs increased so much in lethality.
Sir!
Yeah, they call that a donkey kick. That's something that Marines can do. One of the problems with doing that is it kind of exposes you to the door. So if someone wants to shoot through the door, they can shoot you. One of the things that's a little bit questionable to me was that they're in a residential area and they're immediately lead with a fragmentation grenade, it looks like, which you probably wouldn't do in a residential area, even if you'd been hit by an IED, because you don't know what's going to be in that building. There could be women and children in there, and in this case there were, so you don't just go around always throwing fragmentation grenades.
On the ground! On the ground! Hey. Drummer, we got this. Check that room.
Yeah, I mean, I think this clip kind of broadly gets it right. You know, they try to segregate the civilians, get them into one place, tell them to calm down. I'll give it a 9 out of 10. I think in most regards it seems pretty realistic. It's amazing to think that the man who directed this is the same man who was in Heartbreak Ridge. Amphibious operations has always been a large part of the Marine Corps' identity, but particularly so in the Second World War and the island hopping campaign in the South Pacific. So the Battle of Iwo Jima is one of the most famous battles in that island hopping campaign. And during that campaign, Marines would often land on these islands using boats, like whether it was Higgins boats or amphibious tractors, and you see those types of landing boats depicted in the opening sequence here of Flags of Our Fathers. And I think one thing this clip shows is sort of the violence and intensity of these types of tactics and the fighting, whether it's the flamethrowers being used to clear out pillboxes or the types of close air support that's being flown, I think accurately conveys the extent of the savage fighting that occurred on Iwo Jima. You know, this is obviously becomes a very, very famous photograph, and the Marine Corps Memorial in Washington, D.C. is a statue of the flag raising on Iwo Jima. You know, the raising of American flags in recent wars really isn't as prevalent. I think in Vietnam, in the Battle of Hue City, an American flag was raised. We don't really see it in Iraq and Afghanistan because the nature of those missions were different. We ostensibly weren't conquering those lands for America. We were working with our partners. But I would give this one an 8. I don't think I can go necessarily much higher because I wasn't there. So I feel like 8 is safe, but you know, to me this seems like a very well thought out depiction. You know, this clip depicts what the Marines would call a NEO, a non-combatant evacuation operation. I was involved in a NEO when I was with the 24th Marine Expeditionary Unit in 2006. It was when Israel invaded Lebanon, and we helped evacuate all of the American citizens out of the embassy in Lebanon. But that was a mission that took place over, days and days and days. It was a much more controlled process. You know, this sort of, everything's condensed into a few moments. You know, the colonel shows up, they're about to be overrun. It's, you know, the high drama. You know, and that in of itself is sort of a little bit inaccurate. Usually, by the time things have gotten to this point, there is no NEO that you can do because the embassy's going to be overrun.
Come here, hold it! Where are you going?
I think one of the things that doesn't really make a lot of sense in this clip is that the colonel pauses everything to go get the American flag. I mean, he could have, if it was so important they got the American flag, he could have done that later. And why is the colonel, who is in command of the entire evacuation operation, running up on the roof to get an American flag? You know, I get it's a movie. Samuel L. Jackson's the hero of the movie, but none of that is particularly realistic. He would, you know, if it was so important, he'd, you know, task a lieutenant or a corporal or someone, hey, make sure we get the flag off the roof. I'd give this one kind of like a 6. I feel like the situation isn't sort of that well developed. Again, this one sort of falls victim to kind of condensing a lot of events into a very, very short period of time.
My name is PFC William T. Santiago. Please, sir, I just need to be transferred out of RSC.
Santiago stays where he is.
I think A Few Good Men is like one of the all-time, you know, greatest movies ever made. In terms of its realism, I mean, I think, you know, one of the things that might not be totally realistic about A Few Good Men is the idea that, you know, the colonel in charge of all Marines on Guantanamo would be so intimately involved with the training of one private and whether or not this private is or is not keeping up. I mean, the reality is your colonel's in charge of like hundreds, if not thousands of Marines. So I don't think it's realistic that one colonel would be that concerned about, you know, a single private. That is not particularly realistic. I mean, I think the Marine Corps and all of the service branches go to great lengths to create a culture and a culture of accountability where there isn't hazing that occurs between military members. You know, all of the commands I've ever worked under have been very serious about, you know, preventing hazing and having real consequences for anyone who engages in those behaviors, but inevitably, it happens. So the important thing is having a culture of accountability when those instances occur, that they're dealt with. And, you know, this whole movie is about trying to hold one person accountable for a incident of hazing that goes way too far and results in somebody's life.
I'm being charged with a crime. All you did was weaken a country today, Caffey. That's all you did.
So court-martial trials, as you can see, are different. They're different than civilian trials. I think one thing that maybe people who aren't familiar with military culture don't understand is that you exist when you're in the military in an entirely different legal system. So there are a whole host of things that are illegal to do in the military, which are absolutely not illegal to do if you're a civilian. A Few Good Men is a movie that kind of deals with these much larger themes about like the role of military culture inside of a democracy. And I think that conflict is very realistic and extremely effectively portrayed in A Few Good Men. I got to, like Full Metal Jacket, this one's just so iconic, I got to give it a 10 out of a 10. I mean, maybe there's some quibbles on the margins, but I think what A Few Good Men is saying is very realistic because it comments on a significant fault line in American culture. My favorite Marine Corps movie, well, there's two of them. The first I have to say is Full Metal Jacket, which I already commented on, but I think it's one of the most accurate depictions of Marine Corps recruit training. But I would say, along with it, I have to say is the Sands of Iwo Jima with John Wayne, which is just sort of a great classic red, white, and blue movie about the Marine Corps. So check those two out.
My name's Patrick McNamara. I did 22 years in the U.S. Army Special Operations. I work for my own company called T-Max Inc., where I train people in tactical marksmanship. Today we're going to look at gun handling techniques in movies. He's doing what is referred to as battlefield recovery. So he's got a pistol and there's several mags, and you could tell that there's a variety of pistols around. But he'll find a magazine that matches the pistol in his hand. You could see him look, is this the right mag for this pistol? And looking also at how many rounds are in that. So when it comes to reloading a pistol, we want to break our grip, drop our mag, centerline sweep, eyes go from sights to fight, mag comes out, it's inserted, it's seated, reacquire grip, straight back out. I always say primal skills are very, very important. The ability to throw something accurately, a rock, a bottle, empty pistol in this case, because it's obvious he doesn't have an extra magazine for that pistol. I love the fact that he threw it at a dude. What I love about that scene, and I call this eliminating predictability, where he kind of lowered his profile a little bit, he peeked and saw the guy's foot and shot him right in the foot, and then came back up with two hands and then finished the work. I thought that was cool as hell, eliminating predictability. So a press check becomes extremely important because you have to understand the condition of the weapon system. Just because you've loaded a mag in it does not necessarily mean that it is loaded. They'll pull the slide back, let the slide forward, and assume that they are good to go when in fact they didn't seat the mag all the way. And unless you seat the mag all the way and charge the pistol, it probably didn't load. You never want to go click instead of boom in a gunfight. You know, it's a bad sound. It's like the loudest sound you could hear in a gunfight. So press checks are free. Do a press check if there's a lull in the fight. For me personally, it's not the press check I would use where he flips like this and pulls the slide back a little bit. It looks really cool. I'm going to have more positive control. You have to respect Keanu's gun handling ability. Not only his gun handling ability, but you understand the work that he put in, especially with the mechanics. Because when it comes to reloading, press checks, everything like that, it's obvious that he has got time behind a gun. I'm going to go as high as an 8 on this one. For cool points, solid 10. You're not going to be able to fire that thing from the hip. You could fire a pistol from the hip, whatever it is, where you're just bringing it in tight to your body. You need that bipod down because you have to fire in those 7 to 9 round bursts. He did pretty good at making it look real. You could tell, I mean, those muscles were tense. When it comes to shooting from the hip, me personally, I'm not a big fan of it, but there's a time and place for everything. Immediate lethal threat right there in front of you. So you draw and basically just turn the pistol as soon as it's clear from the holster and start your engaging. Start right there, boom, boom, shooting from the hip. The other thing that you have to suspend reality on is that an M60E3 model can fire that many rounds without malfunctioning. He wraps the belt around his arm. It's to make sure that the thing isn't dangling. You don't want that belt to dangle and to kink because then you're going to have a failure to feed immediately. If you don't have an AG, assistant gunner, is just use the ammo can itself. And the ammo can on a lot of these will just clip on to the side of the apparatus on the machine gun itself, and that way it's fed properly. It just feeds in nice and straight, and that belt won't twist, bind, kink up. I would give it a 4 because you can't fire effectively from the hip. Very, very tough to operate a submachine gun with one hand. There's not a lot of muzzle whip on there, but there's a lot of climb. When this slide comes back, the momentum of the pistol climbs like this. The muzzle whip increases based on how limp your wrist or grip is. That thing is going to climb on fully automatic, and you're just going to start ripping rounds into the roof, and indiscriminate fire is everywhere. Stronger the grip, you're going to get very little. It's going to operate on a flat of a line as possible.
Go get him! I'll hold him up!
His gun handling is overall pretty good. In this scene, not the best because there's so much strong hand only shooting being done. Strong hand only is very, very difficult. And it's very unrealistic how fast he was shooting people strong hand only. There's no way I could replicate something like that real world just because the amount of work it takes, especially with that small frame pistol that he's got. It's probably got a horrible trigger, and he was hitting people at 15 and 20 yards strong hand only. Not going to happen with limited visibility, mind you. It's probably the best shooting form I saw in that entire clip. She's got 2 hands on the pistol. She's braced with her strong side leg, right? So her right leg, her shooting side, and her other leg is cocked up just a little bit. It was a really solid firing from the back position. I would rate this clip a 4. The only reason I would rate it a 4 is because low visibility, you're not going to be hitting those targets the way they were hitting them.
10, 9, 8.
He misses the guy on a motorcycle, but he's close. It's only, what, 10 yards maybe? I definitely would have used 2 hands instead of just 1 because you're way more effective to control the recoil, to get a better follow through, to get a better sight alignment. It's going to increase accuracy overall.
Someone's not counting. 6.
The counting, there is some validity there in knowing how much ammo you have, right? But to count them down like that in a stress inoculation scenario like that, probably not doable. He uses a side grip, right? Something like that. So some people would call it the gangster grip, that kind of thing. You are maybe moving laterally, right-handed shooter, moving from right to left. So like this right here, but you're still looking down at the sights. Now, something that this provides is really good anatomical stability because you're very strong here anatomically. There's a time and a place for it. He wasn't using it correctly, but in order for him to use it more effectively, he should have extended fully and looked straight down rear sight, front sight. I would rate this clip a solid 2. It's not realistic, but it's a lot of fun. One of the SWAT cops, during his movement from point A to point B, does a little roll. Nonsense. The objective when moving from one point to the other is to get there. It's hard to shoot a moving target. You have to eliminate predictability, and mobility equals survivability. Don't do a roll. You can see that it's what's called a failure to eject. So the round extracts, right? The brass extracts, but it didn't eject. He keeps squeezing the trigger. Trained gun hunters are not going to do that. The sound and feel of that malfunction is very, very unique. So if you continue to try to fire a gun with a failure to eject, you're going to squeeze forever. Nothing's going to happen, ever. It's not a catastrophic malfunction, but it's a very, very easy one to clear.
Here's your winner.
So there was another thing that really drove me crazy with the scene. First off, the bullet holes looked ridiculous. Big rips in the paper and everything. They looked nothing like bullet holes in paper. And then you wouldn't have an RO, put his finger in the hole and announce, this guy's the winner. This guy didn't meet up to the standard or whatever like that. It's just very unrealistic. They would have been right there checking the targets themselves. I would rate this clip a 1. Action movies, you have to suspend reality. When an action movie is, let's say, highlighting police or military, I think you have to be more careful with realism. This one here was riddled with buffoonery. He looks around the corner. You never clear a corner with your face. Your face can't shoot back. It would have been better in this particular scene if he were maybe using that room as cover. He could have been full extension and kind of pied off that corner a little bit, walked laterally in a fashion, and then now he owns that real estate with the gun instead of with his face. James Bond doing what's referred to as a cup and saucer grip. So instead of a good solid grip where you're consuming, right, the lower portion of the pistol to reduce muzzle whip like we talked about before, his support hand grip is almost underneath of the pistol. So cup, saucer. So there's very, very little control when it comes to controlling the recoil. There is absolutely no scenario, 0, where cup and saucer would be good to use. He's right in the middle of the hallway. It's like he's in a competition shooting match, and he's firing multiple targets. You don't clear a hallway from the center of the hallway. You want to use cover. His transition between target and target was not bad, but tactically speaking, it was very poor. That was a very easy shot at the assailant, the guy who was holding the gun. His entire pie was visible. Instead, he opted to shoot him, I think, in the hand and her in the arm, which, screw that. I would have taken that shot. He should have that level of training that he could take that shot easily. So overall, Pierce Brosnan's gun form is very, very subpar. I would rate this clip a 3.
That my briefcase?
Is your briefcase? Yeah, it is. Why, you want it back?
He confronts him and allows him to close the gap with pistols out. Game over.
Huh?
Very cool scene. So the way he drew in this particular scene was not only good as far as effectiveness went, but as far as safety went as well. He did such a good job in clearing that blazer, and there was a really good positive grip on that pistol as he drew, and it was just spectacular as far as gun handling went. So hands up which means non-aggressive posture. Came over the top, left hook, down, drew, shot from the hip, boom, boom, and then two hands, boom, boom. So you could tell, not only in this scene, but other scenes in this movie, that Tom Cruise spent many, many, many hours drawing and firing, drawing and firing. So he's built in what people refer to as muscle memory, right? But he's performed the appropriate amount of meaningful repetitions until that draw stroke is seamless. Because that right there was easily a 1.5 or maybe even a sub 1.5 second draw stroke, which was really nice. It looked textbook to me. There's a lot going on in here as far as body position too. So tactically, he eliminates predictability. He makes sure he gets off the X. So his head, his whole body motion is ensuring that nothing is predictable, right? So predictability leads to freaking chaos, and you're an easy target if you are predictable in your body movements. So he went off the charts with unpredictability, like a boxer would do. You know, make him miss, make him pay. I'm not a fan of lazy gun handling, but he just kind of lets it dangle before he puts it away. Me personally, I mean, I would have probably backed up and made sure that I was covering them before I put the pistol away. Overall, in this scene, Tom Cruise's form was really, really good. Time invested, sweat equity. That dude put in work. He put in hours. I would rate this clip a 9. The gun handling, the body motion, the over-the-top left hook, perfect. He grabbed the guy's pistol, immediate like this. No time to think about it. So, I mean, if it were me and I grabbed the pistol like that and I understand its handling characteristics, I might, but then he had plenty of time just to flip it around and get a good grip on it. So what he's doing is he's gripping it this way and firing it with his pinky finger. Now, to be honest, I have done this before for demonstration purposes. Telling people when it comes to firing, the most important thing is sight alignment and trigger control. It doesn't matter what your grip is, your stance, any of that stuff. But as far as firing effectively, absolutely not. You have zero anatomical stability like this. I thought the scene was very, very cool, but two heavy portions facing the same way, you're going to nosedive almost immediately. You're not going to free fall like you're on a magic carpet. There's no way in hell that he would have been able to get effective fire on anybody, let alone even shoot a gun. He'd be hanging on for dear life. When you're shooting in a field like this with tall grass, let's say knee high, there's a couple of things that can increase accuracy. One is the lower the better and the wider the better. The lower, the more stability, the wider, the more mobility. As far as accuracy goes, it's a shotgun, so you really don't need to be that stable, right? So it really doesn't matter whether he was standing in the prone, in a rice paddy prone, or anything of that fashion. I would do the same thing he did in this one. I would imagine that is a preferred technique where you're cupping the butt under your arm and you're shotgunning, right? So you're breaking that rifle in half, extracting those empties and putting in the new cartridges, the new rounds, flipping it up to lock it into battery. You know, I'd probably just assist it with my hand instead of flipping it up like that. I would rate both of these clips for realism about a 6. The way he moves with either a rifle or a pistol, he looks very comfortable. He looks at ease with that stuff. You know, it's like it's an extension of his person.
Downrange target.
Hey, look at that, will you? Not bad for an old man.
So the sights on the revolver are pretty minuscule. They're not very defined. He takes very, very little time to aim after he draws, and he hits this target directly between the running lights, which probably is not going to happen because the accuracy is really not that good. A cross draw would be actually crossing your body to draw the pistol, and then you have to come to extension before you could put two hands on the grip itself and get a good sight picture. Also, you'll notice that Murtaugh takes his finger off the trigger before he reholsters it. That finger has to come off before you reholster it. Riggs' form is very, very cringeworthy. He's slapping the heck out of the trigger, right? So he's going a million miles on that trigger, and he's shutting his eyes at every shot, and his whole body is flinching with every single shot. It's not rhythmic. There's no metronome rhythm there. It's just ripping rounds into the target. It's a horrible pistol marksmanship scene.
Have a nice day.
There's no way he'd be able to print a smiley face on that target. They backed that target way up. I could shoot a smiley face at a target like that at 20 yards. It's going to take me about 30 seconds or so. It's going to be well-aimed shots, not just ripping rounds into the target. That's not going to happen. I would rate this clip a 1. I think every gun handler in the world goes back to this movie and talks about this scene right here, because it's horrible as far as gun handling and marksmanship goes. One of the things that bothered me about this clip is use of firearms in the dark. They all have nods on, right? Night observation devices. None of these folks, none of them, from what I saw, had any kind of illuminator, on their rifle itself. So you're basically firing indiscriminately. It's a huge battlefield multiplier, and I'm surprised they didn't put any in here. I think they're supposed to be special ops troops. They're not in the business of indiscriminate fire. They have to be able to shoot with impunity. It's their job. That's what they get paid the big bucks for.
Gun.
Leave it. Stay in with 6.
She's in the line of fire. Her rifle gets shot. Now she has to transition to her pistol. It never happened to me, ever, but I do know 2 guys that's happened to. Getting shot right in the rifle, and it rendered that rifle inoperable. When she transitioned from rifle to pistol, I thought the grip was pretty good. It was a good solid grip. It was full extension, which when you're moving forward, probably not full extension like this. You want to bring it in a little bit to create a shock absorber of sorts, because if it's at full extension, when you're moving, you're going to create a pendulum of sorts, and it's going to bounce up and down. So if I'm moving forward with a pistol, I'm going to bring it in a little bit just to create that shock absorber. And then if there's a target there, bring it out and get to work. I would rate this clip for realism a 6. I thought the gun techniques were not great, not good, right above average.
Do you want to play rock? Say hello to my little friend.
That wasn't real, but I liked it nonetheless. He launches around into the door, and he's only about 7 meters away. The arming distance, I believe, for M23 is like 20 meters. So it wouldn't have detonated when it hit the door. It just would have sheared right through that door. The rate of fire at which Tony Montana's rifle was firing was pretty accurate. I mean, the muzzle flash, though, that was extreme. So what muzzle flash refers to is the amount of light that is coming off that muzzle when the round leaves the muzzle of the weapon itself. You don't want muzzle flash because it could give away your position. Appreciate that he's not a commando in this. He looks like he's a drug dealer shooting a gun, firing it from the hips, spraying and praying. When I talk about spraying and praying, all I'm saying is you're just squeezing the trigger, you're oriented at the target somewhere, but you're not aiming. It's indiscriminate fire. You're praying that those rounds hit, that all this indiscriminate fire hits what you're potentially aiming at. There's no way that I would teach people to spray and pray, ever. He's got his mags duct taped together, jungle style. Some guys will have 2 magazines, and they'll put something to create a gap in between them so they could drop one when it's empty and switch it, and the full one goes into the mag well. Something else that they might do is place them like this, rounds here, tape them together this way. So empty one comes out, switch it around, full one goes into the mag well. I would rate this clip a 1. Not necessarily based on the gun handling, the volume of rounds from a particular weapon system, the inability to understand what the arming distance is on the M203. So for mechanics' sake, you know, I just thought it was not good. You don't want to go kneeling unsupported like he was shooting. That's not recommended. I think one of the things that I appreciated about this scene is that Max conceded, right? Handed the rifle over to her, and it is not unheard of to use somebody else as support like they were doing. A couple issues though. One is, man, that muzzle right next to your head, that's going to be damaging. It's a micro concussion.
Don't breathe.
As soon as she squeezes, she shoulders the buttstock, and that is an absolute miss on target. So as far as like stabilizing your shooting platform for long distance shots, there are several different types of prone positions. There are several different types of sitting positions, several different types of kneeling positions, squatting positions. I mean, you could use a monopod, a bipod. Now, as far as proper use of that particular scope, I don't think she would have had the dexterity to adjust on that optic. It really matters for the shooter to understand at what distance that rifle is zeroed. Now that target is rapidly approaching, which means the zero distance is changing rapidly as well, which means you probably have to do adjustment on that, and that would be an elevation one versus a windage one. I would rate this clip a 5.
Ah, you mother...
It probably wasn't divine intervention that saved Sam Jackson and John Travolta's life. It was probably just really poor marksmanship. What people might think is, well, why did he miss? You know, that close. Not uncommon. It's not an easy thing hitting somebody with a pistol, even at close distance. If you're not trained and you're just mushing and going 1,000,000 miles an hour in that trigger, you're not hitting diddly squat. It's a movie where you have to suspend reality. These are gangsters. You know, they're not gun guys, they're gangsters. So let them shoot strong hand and just blaze away. Bruce Willis's character is shooting a MAC-10 with a silencer from the hip. The unrealistic part of this is that the MAC-10 actually functioned with the whole magazine, because it's not going to. And the other thing I noticed is that he's got it tucked in real tight, right? Real tight. And I think he's covering, or has the potential of covering, the ejection port, which means that thing is gonna, even if it did function through the entire magazine, it's gonna cease to cycle because there's going to be a failure to extract and eject that empty casing. You could see that his hand is actually touching the silencer. He should have brought it in back of that silencer, because there's no way that he is going to go unscathed without, with his hand on the actual silencer itself. I would rate this a 3 only because there's no effective gun handling at all, but you have to consider the source. Who are these people? So I got to give them a little bit there, because these people are not gun handlers, they're thugs. My favorite gunfight scenes in movies are from Heat and Black Hawk Down. A couple things that struck me about the gunfight in Heat were mechanics, magazine changes, how they were carrying the gear, how they used vehicles for cover. So they went the extra mile, and as far as Black Hawk Down goes, they made them look like very, very authentic in their movements, the way they even just walked with a rifle, those kind of things. Because that takes work to look natural with a rifle when it's not your natural job.
What's up, my name is Remy Adeleke. I spent 13 years in the military, with the majority of that time spent in special operations as a Navy SEAL. And today I'm gonna be breaking down some iconic Navy SEAL movies and TV shows.
Everyone good to go? Good to go!
Yeah, I've never seen any devices like that. We're called SEALs. Part of SEAL is actually an acronym, sea, air, land. A lot of people don't know that. So it's typical for us to work in the water. I've jumped out of a plane into the water before. I've jumped out of a helicopter into the water before. In the scene, they're jumping, not only are they jumping out, but they're pushing vehicles, underwater vehicles, into the water. Now, those type of vehicles, I've never seen in my life. There are vehicles that we do use called SDVs. It stands for SEAL Delivery Vehicles. There are times when if somebody has a unique specialization, but they're not a SEAL, they will go on a mission. And they will be embedded within the SEAL platoon. However, they're not going to be at the front of the train. They're not going to be the first one in the door. That's for sure. And they're going to be somewhere in the middle, somewhere protected, somewhere where they can't hurt the other guys within the platoon. The Rock inspired me. That was the first time I was exposed to Navy SEALs. I had never heard of Navy SEALs before, and I went to go watch the film, and when I saw these guys, that really intrigued me. And then when we got to the scene where they actually sacrificed themselves to save other people, that's what really kind of stuck out to me, this idea that these men are so close-knit, they're skilled, they're great at what they do, and they're willing to put their lives on the line for other people. I've worked with Michael Bay on some other films, so gotta be careful. I would say I would give it a 8.5 as far as accuracy. No. It's supposed to be boats on heads, but they're holding it with their hands. We've never done that. There's an instructor in the boat. Nah, that's not gonna happen. The boat is heavy as it is. The bell, yep. The bell, that's definitely real. I know a lot of guys who have rang that bell. Now these things, I'm assuming that these are buoys. We never did that at all. We never pushed buoys through looks like a berm obstacle course. So I don't know what that is. And here we have the buoy rolling over people. That's not happening. I mean, that's more of a liability. Now this type of surf torture, I have never seen it. I don't know what kind of push-up that is. It's a mental exercise, at least for me it was. You're laying in this freezing cold water. You don't know how long you're gonna be in the water. And that's where they get a lot of guys who quit. That's where you do get a lot of quitters. There were multiple times during Hell Week and various evolutions where during surf torture, I was either near hypothermia or hypothermic. As a matter of fact, during one surf torture in Hell Week, my core temperature dropped down to 88.7 degrees. So, and what happened after that was the instructors took me to Bud's Medical, went through a rewarming drill. I think it took about an hour or two to rewarm me. And then as soon as I was back to a normal core temperature, I went right back into Hell Week, and one of the instructors asked me, they said, hey, you want to quit it? You want to go back in that cold water? And I said, I'll go back in the cold water. So the instructors are trying to put you in a situation where you have to work together as a team and push through the discomfort. There's cases where if you're not running in sync, the boat will bob and bounce on a person's head, and that just causes more pain. There's actually been guys who have had serious neck injuries and fractured their necks because of the bouncing, or because somebody within the boat was ducking boat, which means they had their head down while other people were carrying the weight. So it's a pretty serious evolution. And the instructor in the boat, I would have to give it about a 4.
6 times 3. Hurry up.
What we're seeing here is a swim. It's called wetsuit appreciation swim, and essentially they're making you swim in freezing cold water for a long period of time without a wetsuit, and it's miserable. It's horrible.
Andrew, come back.
Yeah, this guy, he's shallow water blackout. You know, he blacked out from being underwater. The majority of it is footage from a Discovery Channel documentary called Buds 234. And interestingly, I watched that documentary in order to prepare for Buds, because you know, coming from the Bronx, and I didn't have a lot of exposure to Navy SEALs or how to prepare for SEAL training. As a matter of fact, when I joined the Navy, I couldn't swim.
2 minutes, you don't make it, you do it again.
Have you been tested this hard ever in your life? Never.
Buds is 6 months, broken up into 3 phases. First phase, which is where they really weed out the majority of the class. Then their second phase, which is dive phase. That's when they're beginning to really teach you different elements of being a SEAL. And then third phase is weapons, tactics, land warfare, and demolitions. If a person makes it through 6 months of Buds, then the next step is SQT, SEAL qualification training. That's where you really get into the weeds of what it means to be a Navy SEAL and to do the job that we do. And then from there, you go on to your SEAL team. The attrition rate for SEAL training fluctuates between 75 and 90%. The class that I graduated with started out with 270, and we only graduated 29 guys. I have to give it a 10. I have to give it because it's the real deal. You don't get no realer than that.
Listen to me. Listen, hey, listen up. When you go outside that gate, you go left. You understand? Yes. The right is bad guys. You're going left. You're taking the back way to the annex. You got it?
I got it. This guy who's driving and he seems disoriented and he's not paying attention is because most likely he's not a SEAL. If he was a SEAL, he wouldn't be as confused.
Coming! 1 minute from the back gate! Feel it! Feel it! Feel it! Someone cover us on the roof!
What was going on was the guys were bounding. And when a unit is bounding away from a contact, it's always important for 1 or 2 or 3, however many guys to be shooting and the other part of that team moving. You know, we call that shoot, move, or cover, move. So in the clip, you know, John's character said cover and move. And that's something we always do when we're bounding from a contact. Those are all weapons that not only, you know, I've carried, but I've seen other guys in my platoon, my teams carry when we go out the door on operations. This movie, 13 Hours, is based off of from an actual event that happened in Benghazi. The embassy was attacked and overrun. The guys who were defending, for the most part, they were all guys with special operations backgrounds. A few of them were Navy SEALs. Actually, one of them, the guy who got killed, Ty Woods, was my Buds instructor. He put me through SEAL training. Personally, I would give it a 9.5. So they're fast roping. I fast roped before. Fast rope. It's an easy way to insert into a situation.
Senior, you're clear.
This guy right here, he's an intelligence guy. He's a SEAL, but he's also an intelligence guy. We call it HUMINT, which is human intelligence, and that's what I did in the SEAL teams. Not only are they covering down on doors as one guy's, as the point man is moving forward, but they're covering down on windows. So everything is a threat when you're on operation, especially, you know, in on a ship like this, or a house. You know, closets, open doors, windows. Hidden spaces.
Clear! Breach secure!
And one guy says clear. Clear is just, that's something we say when the room is clear. That doesn't mean that nobody's in the room. That means that the room is clear. The style boats that you saw in the clip, they're really high speed. They're operated by a special operations unit called SWCC. SWCC stands for Special Warfare Combat Craft Crewmen. On the rivers or any operation along the water, they help insert SEALs and extract SEALs from targets. They used real Navy SEALs and real SWCC operators as the main actors. So I would give it a 9.5. The 0.5 that's missing is the fact that, you know, in Hollywood you gotta spice up a little bit to have a storyline. I get that as a writer, so.
Jesus, Dane, who packed your shoe? It doesn't look good.
We always check each other's gear. My platoon chief had the same check, and recheck. Yeah, this is a halo, standard halo, jumping out.
Oh, shit.
So what's going on here, this guy has a malfunction. Yeah, this reserve opens pretty late, probably because he cut away late. Yeah, it's not that easy. If you have a malfunction and you've tried to fix it and it didn't work, you got to cut away. And essentially what it is, you look down at that red tab and you pull that cut away first. And then you look down at your reserve and you pull that away second, in that order. There have been people who've died, not just in the military, but in civilian jumping because they had a malfunction and they made it worse by opening their reserve parachute before cutting away. And their reserve parachute now gets tangled in their main parachute, and there's nothing you can do after that. I'd have to give it a 5, man. I'd have to give it a 5.
It's like to hear what you guys have to say about it. That's all. Speak freely.
My opinion, sir, we cut our losses. This isn't our war.
So it's one of my favorite Navy SEAL movies. I'll say that. I'll say that first and foremost. It was directed by a phenomenal director by the name of Antoine Fuqua. It really shows the interaction between SEALs, but not just SEALs, but the leadership of a SEAL platoon and the other guys, the sled dogs, so to speak. We have a saying, again, leadership at every level, and so we all are able to give our input. I've been in situations with my OIC's officer in charge of the platoon, and where he wants everybody's input. He wants to hear, hey, how should we take down? How should we take down this target? What should we? It's not like other military units where you have one guy in charge and he says go storm that mountain and everybody just mindlessly goes and storms that mountain. And interestingly, a lot of people don't know this, but the requirements academically to get in SEAL training are really, really high. And a lot of guys who do show up to SEAL training, buds, they have bachelor's degrees. A lot of them have master's degrees. There were guys who were established. I mean, there were guys who were accountants and lawyers or big businessmen, and one day they woke up and said, you know what, this is boring, I want to be a Navy SEAL. Yeah, that scene, I would get a 9.5. It's hard for me to give anything a 10, but yeah, for that scene, absolutely a 9.5.